I woke up in the middle of nowhere, some wild hillside at night, with only a faint circle of moonlight around me. The last thing I remembered was eating lunch at home. Then a mechanical voice in my head gave me my first task: find shelter within 100 meters. There was nothing around but grass, rocks, and a few small trees. So I spent the whole night breaking branches, dragging logs, weaving grass mats, and building myself a tiny lean-to between two trees. It was barely big enough to lie in, but the system accepted it and gave me a crude leaf backpack with about 1 cubic meter of space inside. Game logic, I guess. Next task: make 3 simple tools. I tied stones to sticks with grass rope and came up with a hammer, an axe, and a knife. All terrible quality, but they counted. That earned me a survival gift box where I had to pick a direction: hunting, gathering, or farming. Hunting seemed too risky, gathering too random, and I hadn't seen any animals or fruit around anyway. I chose farming. The box gave me a stone pickaxe, a wooden shovel, a bucket, and a tiny bag of seeds I couldn't even identify. Then the system told me to clear 1 square meter of land, which was easy since I'd already pulled up grass everywhere. After that, I planted a single seed, didn't want to waste any, and the final newbie quest completed. By then I was starving and exhausted, but at least the tutorial was done. I was officially registered as player 8181-0997, dropped into this survival world with nothing but a grass shack, some stone tools, and a handful of mystery seeds. The moment I officially entered the survival world, everything synced up: my data panel, a regional chat channel, and a trading interface all unlocked. Turns out I was among the first 1,000 players in my zone, so I got to spin a reward wheel. I landed on a level 1 support skill book called Synthesis, which lets me combine items of green quality or higher. Useless for now since I don't own anything that good, but maybe it'll matter later. The chat channel had about 994 players already talking. Player number 1, a guy named Luo Shan, warned everyone that this world is no joke. People actually die here. He'd already survived a wolf attack and watched 5 players get killed. He told us to build defenses, be careful around strangers, and save any potions we find. I checked my personal stats: combat power of 5, which is just a normal healthy adult. No real equipment, just my starter clothes and that grass shack. And those mystery seeds? Cilantro. 419 seeds of cilantro. I eat the stuff as seasoning, but as a main food source? That's rough. I opened my 2 remaining reward boxes. The survival supply box gave me 20 steamed buns, 20 loaves of bread, pickled vegetables, and some drinking water. Enough food for maybe 10 days if nothing goes wrong. The farming tool box had a sickle, bamboo baskets, a carrying pole, and something called a level 1 crop accelerator. That last one covers a 10 by 10 meter area and doubles growth speed, though it needs nutrient solution to run, which I can't afford yet since I have 0 survival points. My task list showed 3 jobs: keep clearing farmland, fix up my shelter, and dig a well. All of them pay survival points. So even though I'd been up all night and was exhausted, sleeping in broad daylight wasn't an option. No matter what world you're in, you've got to work if you want to survive. After clearing a 2 by 5 meter plot and planting all 420 cilantro seeds, I got my first achievement, 10 survival points. The seeds won't sprout for 3 days though, and the soil is too dry, which slows things down even more. No well means no water for irrigation yet. The survival shop unlocked as soon as I had points to spend. Everything basic was there: steamed buns for 5 points each, bottled water for 3, cooking supplies, simple tools. Nothing fancy though. If you want real meals, you have to grow or hunt the ingredients yourself. I couldn't find anything useful for digging a well either. So I started chopping trees for fence materials instead. My homemade stone axe broke after just 2 small trees. The whole thing just fell apart into rocks, snapped rope, and splinters. Lesson learned about sloppy craftsmanship. I spent 8 points on a proper iron axe from the shop, and the difference was night and day. One clean swing cut through a tree, and it barely used any durability. The chat channel had grown to over 6,000 players by then. Most of the conversation was noise, people arguing, deals falling through, someone getting scammed on a trade. There's a consignment system and an auction house, but both charge fees. Consignment costs 1 point per listing slot, plus a small cut when it sells. The auction house takes 5% and sets the starting price automatically. Either way, Making money here isn't easy. I spent the whole morning cutting wood and sharpening stakes. Then after lunch, I started hammering them into the ground around my little shack. The stone hammer broke partway through, so I finished the job with a plain rock. By the time the circle of stakes was done, all I needed was vines and rope to weave them together into a proper fence. I grabbed my sickle and headed out past the 100-meter mark to search for materials. I was running on zero sleep and pure stubbornness at that point. While I was out gathering grass beyond my fence line, I heard a weak meowing. I grabbed my axe and climbed a tree to get a better view into the tall grass. Down there was a tiny tabby kitten, a little gray and black striped cat, probably just a month old, curled up and shaking. All four of its legs were bleeding, probably cut up by thorns or vines. I checked the area to make sure nothing dangerous was hiding nearby, then scooped the kitten up and brought it home. I made a little nest out of soft grass inside the fence, gave it some water, and soaked a bit of steamed bun until it was mushy enough for a baby cat to eat. The kitten was so hungry it licked the leaf bowl clean. I've never owned a pet before, but at least I knew this one could survive on what I had. I kept working on the fence while the kitten settled in. By late afternoon, I'd finished weaving grass rope around all the stakes and hung a simple gate made of branches. The system rewarded me with 10 points for the home improvement task and another 20 for the defense achievement. The fence is honestly flimsy. I could kick it over myself, but it might be enough to turn away small wild animals. With 32 points saved up, I went looking through the shop for something to help me dig a well. I found a one-time use water source locator for 25 points. Expensive, and it only scans a 10-meter radius with no guarantee of finding anything. But I needed water, so I used it right in my yard. Luckily, it found a spot just inside the fence, not far from my door. I started digging with the stone pickaxe. Half a meter down, I was already hitting rocks everywhere, and then the pickaxe broke. I checked my balance, 7 survival points left. An iron pickaxe costs 8. 1 point short, with a half-dug hole and a snoring kitten staring at me like I'd lost my mind. I needed 1 more survival point to buy an iron pickaxe, so I put 2 loaves of bread up for auction at the minimum half-hour timer. The market was already flooded. Everyone got the same starter food, so bread and buns had dropped to 2 points each. Nobody bought mine, but the auction house auto-collected them for 1.9 points after the timer ran out. That was enough. I bought the pickaxe and got back to digging. The kitten watched me from its grass nest with sleepy, confused eyes. Something about that little face actually lifted my mood a bit. Maybe having a companion around wouldn't be so bad. I dug for hours straight, loosening dirt with the pickaxe, shoveling it out, hitting rocks, switching tools, repeating. The sunlight faded, and I barely noticed. By the time the system finally confirmed I'd hit water, I crawled out of the hole and collapsed on the ground, too tired to even move my fingers. The well task and the achievement together paid out 80 survival points, which felt like a fortune compared to selling bread for scraps earlier. I fed the kitten some more soaked bun, ate my own dinner of steamed bun and pickled vegetables, gave the little one a pat on the head, and passed out in the grass shack. First real sleep since arriving in this world. Next morning, the kitten's wounds already looked better. Another couple days, and it should be walking again. After breakfast, I hauled water from the well bucket by bucket and carefully irrigated the cilantro plot. I piled up soil edges around the field and laid leaves down so the water would seep in gently without washing the seeds away. 10 buckets later, the system showed the soil was properly hydrated, and the sprouting timer dropped to just 1 more day. Then I noticed the weather display. Rain was coming in about 7 hours. Since the seeds hadn't sprouted yet, a heavy downpour could wash everything out. I went and cut a bunch of leafy branches and stored them in the shack to keep them fresh, ready to cover the field if needed. After that, I moved on to the daily tasks. The day's tasks were clear: keep farming, make a tool, and dig drainage ditches before the rain hit. I dug channels around my yard and the cilantro field all morning, bought an iron shovel when the wooden one broke, and checked the terrain to redirect water away from my home. Luo Shan popped up in chat again, warning everyone about the incoming storm, and for once people actually listened instead of arguing. At lunch, I moved the kitten's nest inside the grass shack with me. After eating, I ran out and covered the cilantro field with grass and branches, weighed everything down with logs so even strong wind wouldn't rip it off. Then I cut more grass and rushed home just as the sky turned dark and the temperature dropped. The rain came fast. Scattered drops turned into a downpour in under a minute. I stripped down to my underwear to keep my clothes dry, went back out into the storm, and layered another grass mat over the shack roof, tying it down with rope and pinning it with rocks. Stood in the rain a while after that. Figured I might as well call it a bath. The kitten greeted me with its usual head tilt and a quiet meow when I came back inside. I carved a simple wooden rake from a small tree to finish the daily crafting task. With all 3 tasks done and the rain trapping me indoors, I had nothing to do but sit and think. And that's when the memories came back. When I was a kid, my parents left me with my grandparents in a small village. My grandmother's brother lived there too. I called him granduncle, but I mostly thought of him as the old fraud. He played the role of a village healer, fixing dislocated joints, calming scared children, handling things doctors wouldn't touch. Everyone liked him. He taught me physical training exercises when I was 5 or 6, including a fitness routine I still practice. But he made me promise not to train seriously until I turned 18, saying it would stunt my growth. When I was 9, my parents came to take everyone to the city. That day, a heavy rain washed out the road and the cars stopped. I somehow found the courage to sneak away and run back to the village alone. What I saw there I've never been able to forget. The old fraud standing in the pouring rain, laughing like a madman, facing dozens of armed people in tactical gear. When he spotted me, he froze for a second, nearly getting hurt because of the distraction. Then everything went black. I woke up in his arms on a hilltop outside the village. Below us, the whole place was burning despite the heavy rain. He told me the truth then. Some people are born with special abilities, and there are powerful groups that hunt them down. Anyone they can't capture, they kill. That's why he'd hidden for decades under a fake identity. He told me his power was fire control. He said I might have abilities too, but there was no way to know until I trained. He repeated his instructions over and over until they were burned into my memory, and then I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was back in the car, and nobody had noticed I'd been gone. After that, my family moved into a luxury home in a big city. I was thrown into a rich kid's school, skipping grades I wasn't ready for, struggling to keep up while nobody cared. I didn't understand at the time how my ordinary village parents suddenly became wealthy. Years later, the night before my college entrance exams, I stepped out because my parents were fighting again. When I came back 15 minutes later, our house was a wall of fire. The old fraud was inside, burning his own life as fuel for his revenge. Standing outside in shock, I finally understood everything. My parents had betrayed him. They traded his location for money and status. The special wine they'd forgotten to deliver on that rainy day was drugged, meant to restrain him so the hunters could take him. He'd escaped that time and gone into hiding for years, but they tracked him through my family again. And even after all of that, when he came back to take his revenge on them, he didn't hurt me. Instead, with his last moments, he gave me one final lesson, the most serious and careful teaching he'd ever done. Old liar. Old fraud. Old master. While sitting in the shack listening to the rain, I tried something the old fraud had taught me years ago. I focused the way he'd described, and a tiny bead of water, about the size of a bean, actually formed above my palm. It was floating. I could move it. Not much, just a little shift in direction, but I was controlling it. After all those years of practicing that routine like it was just exercise, it turned out the old fraud's training was real. I couldn't tell if this power came from me naturally, from the world change, or from the heavy rain around me. But it was there. Water control, like something out of a novel. I kept practicing, condensing, and moving small water droplets until my mind started getting tired. There seemed to be a limit to how much I could gather before losing control, so I focused on precision first. A friend request notification had woken me from my memories earlier. It was from player 32, Qin Jian, the guy who'd called out to me in chat when I got my skill book. He sent request after request until I finally accepted. His messages came flooding in. He said they'd figured out that our whole zone is one big connected map, and he wanted to organize players to search for each other and group up. I sent back a string of questions. What happens after you find everyone? How do you split resources? Who decides the work? Who's in charge? What stops it from becoming some people working while others benefit? He went quiet for half an hour, then came back saying he'd been thinking too simply and told me to forget the whole thing. I didn't reply and closed the chat. On the practical side, I discovered a nice trick with my new ability. I pulled the moisture right out of my wet underwear and clothes, drying them instantly. No combat power yet, but for daily life this was incredibly useful. The kitten and I settled in for the night. Outside, the chat channel was buzzing with reports of wolf tracks in the rain, flash flooding, and even landslides. But inside my little shack, with the rain drumming on the grass roof and the kitten curled up beside me, I slept. I woke up to the kitten screaming. A small gray bird had landed on the edge of my shack and was about to attack it. I flicked a water bead from my fingertip, not enough to kill the bird, but enough to stun it, then slid over and grabbed it with my hand. 2 ounces of meat at best, but it would make a nice bonus meal. The system didn't give me any hunting rewards though, probably because I'd chosen the farming path. The rain had stopped. I checked the cilantro field and found tiny sprouts just starting to poke through the soil, with a countdown showing about 48 hours until the seedling stage. Everything looked healthy. Today's tasks were different. Farming as always, plus a gathering quest and a patrol mission. Walk 1,000 meters around my home area. The ground was too wet from the storm to do any real farming, so I headed out with my sickle to handle the other 2 tasks together. That's when I found mushrooms. All kinds of them had popped up after the rain. Most were just ordinary. The system labeled them by weight and nothing more. But 6 of them triggered a special notification. Successfully gathered an unidentified plant. Red caps, white stems, very eye-catching. The system had never given me prompts for cutting trees or pulling grass, so getting a notification meant these were probably something valuable. That got me excited. I spent the whole morning combing through the area, cutting grass to take home, and picking up every strange mushroom I could find. By the time both tasks were done, I'd earned another 40 survival points, bringing my total to 120.9. I checked my stats and noticed something new. My water ability was now officially listed as Water Element Control under Special Abilities, and my combat power had jumped from 5 to 11 with the bonus. Not that I planned to tell anyone about it. The old fraud was hunted down and killed because people with abilities get targeted. Players here apparently come from different parallel worlds, so the same kind of hunters might exist among them. This power stays my secret. When I got home, the kitten had dragged itself all the way to the entrance of the shack. It must have spent the entire morning struggling to move on its injured legs just to get closer to where I'd left. It was shaking but kept meowing at me. I think being left alone scared it more than the bird had. I sat down and wove a small basket, about 20 centimeters wide, narrower at the top, with a lid that had holes so the kitten could see out. I lined the inside with soft grass that I'd squeezed the moisture out of using my water ability. The kitten loved it, rolling around happily inside. I attached a grass rope strap so I could carry it on one shoulder, with my leaf backpack on the other. Pretty balanced, actually. From now on, the little one comes with me. After lunch, I turned my attention to those 6 unidentified mushrooms. I searched the shop and found that a plant identification tool costs 500 survival points and only lasts 50 uses. Way out of my budget. But then a notification popped up. My synthesis skill could work on these. The mushrooms were apparently green quality items, and 5 of them could be combined into one blue quality item at a 100% success rate. I used 5, keeping the extra one aside. The 5 mushrooms vanished and were replaced by a single mushroom glowing with faint blue light. And unlike the originals, this one didn't need identifying at all. It was called a Level 2 Enhanced Mushroom Seedling, a mutant plant still in its seedling stage that I could grow in my field. It needs to mature before it can be eaten or processed. So that's how the quality system works. No grade means common. Level 1 is green, Level 2 is blue, Level 3 is purple. The auction house barely has any purple items listed, and the shop only sells ungraded stuff. My synthesis skill just skipped the need for an expensive identifier entirely. That alone might be worth more than I first thought. After lunch, I went to plant the enhanced mushroom seedling. But first I had to re-till yesterday's cleared land. The rain had hardened the surface. Farming really never stops being work. The mushroom went in easily enough, but its info panel revealed something interesting. It has territorial awareness. Nothing can be planted within a 1-meter radius around it. No ordinary crops, no mutant plants of blue quality or below. It needs about 3 days to mature. Then the achievement rewards hit me. 100 points for planting a green quality mutant plant and 500 points for planting a blue quality one. 600 points at once. I'd been scraping by selling bread for scraps, and suddenly I felt rich. The kitten was lying outside, twitching its legs while sunbathing. I panicked for a second and picked it up to check, but it was just the scabs healing. Itchy, not dangerous. I gave it some water from a bottle cap and put it back. The little thing rolled over happily to let the sun reach everywhere. It was just enjoying itself. With money to spend, I opened the seed shop. The prices were painful. White cabbage seeds, 100 points for 10 seeds. Potatoes, 50 points for 1. Tomatoes, 90 points for 3. Even cilantro, which I'd gotten free, would cost 100 points for just 5 seeds. I'd been given 420 cilantro seeds at the start without knowing how lucky that was. I bought 2 packs of cabbage seeds, 20 seeds for 200 points, and planted them carefully around the mushroom's territory circle. That brought me back down to earth fast. Achievement bonuses are one-time rewards, but daily tasks only pay about 30 points total, and expenses pile up constantly. Seeds are expensive, tools break, and everything costs something. The chat channel was full of the same complaints. Hunters need 300 points just for a basic bow and arrow set. Gatherers need 200 for toolkits. Most players are spending more than they earn. Unless you can fight wolves barehanded or have some special crafting talent. This survival economy is brutal. The chat was buzzing about treasure chests, random loot boxes hidden around the map. Some players had never seen one, while others stumbled on them in rivers or behind rocks. Luo Shan explained that chests spawn randomly, but achievements can be farmed deliberately, and listed off a bunch of ways to trigger them, like cooking meals, wearing equipment, or hitting kill counts. What caught my attention was a player numbered over 10,000. We're only on day 3, and the zone already has that many people. Luo Shan had mentioned he finished his tutorial in 3 minutes flat on day 1. That guy is something else. I decided to go treasure hunting. My daily tasks were done. Seeds are too expensive to keep buying, and I needed to get out anyway to cut branches for protecting my enhanced mushroom. I put the kitten in its basket, closed the lid, and started running circles around my hill, widening the loop each time. At the bottom of the slope, between 2 tall boulders, I spotted it, a chest. I climbed up, caught my breath, and cracked it open. Inside, 5 bottles of water, 2 chili pepper seeds, and 2 pieces of rough cloth. The cloth turned out to be green quality crafting material, 1 meter squares. I checked the market immediately. Rough cloth sells for about 100 survival points per piece. But the real value is in what you can make from it. A cloth shirt gives defense and stamina recovery. Cloth pants, cloth shoes, all with stat bonuses. And a cloth backpack offers 16 cubic meters of storage, listed at 3,000 survival points. My current leaf backpack is only 1 cubic meter and already falling apart. I desperately need that upgrade, but can't remotely afford it yet. For now, I pocketed the cloth and ran home. Before dark, I cut down 3 small trees and stripped the branches into thin rods, then built a tight cage around the enhanced mushroom, like an upside-down basket with gaps no wider than a centimeter. If some rabbit wandered in at night and ate my blue-quality crop, I'd never recover from that loss. Sitting at 742 survival points, I decided it was time to buy a cooking pot. The kitten's legs still hadn't healed enough for it to stand, and I figured real food might help it recover faster. The shop didn't sell cookware, but I found a crude iron pan in the consignment market, basically a thick iron plate hammered into a bowl shape, about 10 pounds heavy, for 200 points. I set up a simple stove in the yard, dug a small pit, stacked rocks around it, and balanced the pan on top. Used my water ability to dry out some grass and twigs for fuel, then spent a good 15 minutes rubbing sticks together before I finally got a fire going. The kitten freaked out when it saw the flames, but I calmed it down. I pulled out the little bird I'd caught earlier, skinned it, cleaned out the guts, tore it into pieces, and dropped it into the pot with a bottle of water to stew. While the meat simmered, I cleaned and chopped up a pound of the ordinary mushrooms I'd gathered. Once the bird meat was done, soft enough for a baby cat to eat, I fished it out to cool and started cooking my own dinner, mushroom soup with pickled vegetable strips. The mushroom dish turned out to be green quality food with a 10% recovery speed boost lasting 10 minutes. That triggered another first-time achievement worth 100 survival points. The plain bird meat didn't count for anything though, probably too small a portion. I mashed the cooled meat into tiny pieces and put it in the kitten's leaf bowl. It sniffed cautiously, glanced up at me once, then started eating, slowly at first, then wolfing it down until the bowl was spotless. Since the mushroom soup had that healing bonus, I crushed a cooled piece and gave the kitten a taste of that too. Even 10 minutes of boosted recovery was worth trying. For my own dinner, I just ate straight from the pot with chopsticks I'd carved from sticks, along with a steamed bun. No bowls, no plates, no table. Just a man, a cat, a fire, and the best meal either of us had eaten since arriving in this world. The mushroom soup worked on the kitten. A faint glow flashed across its body after eating, the same kind I'd seen on my own skin. So green quality food really does boost recovery, even for animals. After dinner, I washed the pot at the well and sat down to practice my water ability. This time I tried reaching outward with my mind, and after a while I could sense gentle clusters of energy floating around me. When I moved toward one, it merged with me on its own. I didn't even have to figure out how to grab it. Once I got the hang of that, I kept going, pulling in more and more water energy until I lost track of time. I woke up past 8 the next morning, having trained through the entire night. The kitten had been awake for a while, but stayed still so it wouldn't bother me. When I looked over, it shakily pushed itself up on all 4 legs and actually stood for a moment, still trembling with pain, but standing. I picked it up before it pushed too hard. One more day of rest, and it should be able to walk properly. For breakfast, I made another pot of mushroom soup, this time with 3 pounds of fresh mushrooms, 2 packs of pickled vegetables, and a packet of salt I bought for 10 points. I strung the leftover mushrooms on sticks along the fence to dry in the sun. Shop food stays fresh forever in its packaging, but anything from the wild will rot if you don't preserve it. Then Qin Jian messaged me again. He and Luo Shan had come up with a new plan. Instead of searching for players to organize, they'd just compile useful information and post it in the chat channel twice a day, morning and evening, so everyone could benefit. He wanted me to check for problems with the idea. I told him it was a good thing to do, warned him to watch out for people who profit from information gaps since he'd basically be cutting into their business, and reminded him to protect himself. He said he could handle it. I'm not the type to do selfless things for strangers, but I respect people who are. It takes a strong heart to help others for nothing in return. After eating, I loaded the kitten into its basket and headed out. Maybe I'd find more collectible plants, maybe another treasure chest. Either way, sitting around never earned anyone anything. Day 4. While jogging near home with the kitten in its basket, a black snake about a meter long shot out of the grass right where I'd been standing. The kitten's panicked meow warned me just in time. I jumped onto a nearby rock. When the snake lunged at my leg, I fired a water bead straight through its skull. Last night's training hadn't made my water attacks bigger, but my control had improved a lot. At close range, I could punch clean through a small snake's head. After calming the kitten down, I kept searching the area and found something new, a ground-creeping vine covered in tiny berries. Most were unripe green or yellow, but some had turned red. The system called the ripe ones snake berries, common and ungraded, but 2 of the fruits triggered the special, unidentified plant notification. I dug up the whole plant, roots and all, and carried it home to transplant. Except the system wouldn't let me plant it in my cultivated field. Wild plants with no quality grade don't count as proper crops. So I just stuck it in an empty patch of ground nearby. It's still wild technically, but at least I can swing by and pick ripe berries whenever they appear. For the new 10 square meters I'd cleared, I planted my 2 chili seeds and bought a pack of cherry tomato seeds for 100 points. The tomatoes need a surprising amount of space, 1 seed per 4 square meters, so these things must grow huge. My farm inventory now. For 120 cilantro plants starting to sprout tiny leaves, 20 cabbages waiting to germinate, 2 chilies and 2 cherry tomatoes just planted, and the blue quality enhanced mushroom 2 days from harvest. Not much, but it's a start. Then I noticed the cilantro field had a weed problem. The weeds had sprouted overnight and were already growing faster than the cilantro, 5 centimeters tall by mid-morning, while the cilantro leaves were barely 2 or 3. I squatted down and started pulling them out one by one with my fingers. The kitten started meowing from its grass nest, annoyed that I wasn't paying attention to it. This cat has gotten spoiled fast. When I first found it half dead, it didn't make a sound, and now it complains the moment I look away. I picked it up and went back to weeding one-handed. It watched curiously for a while, tilting its head at what I was doing. Then, The second I wasn't paying attention, it jumped right into the field. The kitten surprised me. After jumping into the cilantro field, it started using its little claws to hook grass sprouts out of the soil. It was actually helping me weed. Its legs were still shaky but not trembling as badly as before, so I let it keep going. Between the two of us, we had the whole field cleared by noon. Then it put its paw on a cilantro plant and looked at me, asking if that one could be dug up too. I pushed its paw away and told it no. That's the crop, not a weed. It seemed to understand and gave up, then crawled into my hand to rest. For lunch, I skinned the snake I'd killed earlier, cut the meat into pieces, and stewed it with mushrooms. The snake skin wasn't worth anything as material, so I burned it to avoid attracting trouble with the smell. While the food cooked in the light rain, I'd rigged a tiny shelter over the stove to keep the fire going. All 3 daily tasks were done, 30 points earned, bringing me to about 659 total. Money comes and goes fast here though. Tools keep breaking and need replacing from the shop. I spent the wait reading the chat channel. Luo Shan had posted his morning info dump, mostly hunting tips like how to set simple traps for rabbits and chickens. He also mentioned that players with crafting skills from before this world could try making things here. That sparked a big discussion about whether you could weave a backpack from green quality materials. That got me thinking. I pulled out my 2 pieces of rough cloth and checked the market. Cloth sells for about 100 points in consignment, but the auction house only values it at 5 points as a starting bid. The gap between what materials cost on the open market and what the system thinks they're worth is enormous. And my synthesis skill can upgrade item quality. Take cheap green materials, combine them into blue, and the value jumps dramatically. I could see the path to real money, but there's a wall in the way: mental energy. Using synthesis drained me badly last time. Practicing water control also eats mental energy. So does combat training. I have 1 resource powering 3 different needs, and it's nowhere near enough. Knowing you could get rich, but being physically unable to do it, that's a frustrating feeling. The snake and mushroom stew turned out to be green quality food with speed and poison resistance buffs, but only lasting 12 minutes. I shared it with the kitten. These temporary boosts aren't practical for combat. You'd have to eat mid-fight, but if I made portable containers, I could carry portions and eat them before heading out. Something to work on later. While browsing the chat, a player named Zhang Wei number 2 posted that he was selling 6 baby rabbits. He'd hunted 2 adult rabbits for lunch and found a nest of newborns, tiny, hairless, pink things. He wanted 100 survival points for all 6, but couldn't list them on the consignment board or auction house. That detail caught my attention. The only things I've seen that can't be listed for sale are unidentified items. If these were 6 unidentified creatures, I could potentially use my synthesis skill on them. Qin Jin scolded Zhang Wei in chat for being wasteful, killing the parents, and leaving the babies to die every time. Zhang Wei shot back that he can't check for nests mid-hunt, and he's not about to become a rabbit farmer. He gave them maybe 30 minutes before they'd die. I added him as a friend and asked if they were green quality unidentified. He confirmed, but warned me twice that they'd probably be dead by the time I got them. I didn't care. I opened a trade, 3 points fee on each side, put up 100 survival points, and received 6 tiny dying rabbits. The synthesis prompt appeared, but the success rate was only 40%. That was new. Last time with 5 mushrooms it had been 100%. Then I remembered the 3 unidentified plant fruits still in my backpack. On a hunch, I added them to the mix. 6 unidentified baby animals plus 3 unidentified plants. Success rate jumped to 100% with a 10% mutation chance. I hit confirm. Everything merged into a dense green glow. My mental energy drained hard, and what dropped into my hand was a single sprouted seed. The 9 unidentified materials, 6 baby rabbits, and 3 mystery fruits, merged into a single sprouted seed. A level 1 plant called rabbit ear grass, green quality, with a mutation effect that won't reveal itself until maturity. I went out in the rain to plant it. It needed at least a 5 by 5 meter growing area, 25 square meters for 1 plant. I had to quickly clear extra land around it just to meet the minimum. Then it showed water insufficient, despite the rain falling on it. This thing drinks water like crazy. I hauled over 20 buckets from the well before it finally showed water sufficient, and then it started growing right in front of me. The tiny sprout twisted out of the soil, leaves appeared, 3 vines stretched out, and from each vine more branches sprouted with pairs of leaves shaped like rabbit ears. I stood there for 10 minutes watching it spread across the entire 25 square meter plot. Hundreds of little rabbit ear leaves, all from one seed. The growth timer showed 15 days to maturity, with a note about water mutation. It needs massive amounts of water to keep growing. At least for now, it's not thirsty. I went back inside, dried my pants with my water ability, and collapsed. The synthesis had drained my mental energy badly. No training tonight. Then Zhang Wei messaged me. Someone had reminded him that I'd gotten a support skill, and he'd convinced himself my ability must be healing or rescue type, that I'd bought the rabbits to save them. He offered a long-term deal. Half price on future litters, 50 points for a full nest, 10 points per animal for smaller batches. He was practically begging me to agree, since having a steady support skill partner is every hunter's dream. I just told him the rabbits didn't survive. I didn't explain that my skill turned them into a plant. He felt bad and lowered his prices even more, swearing me to secrecy since undercutting the market would get him yelled at by other hunters. I agreed to the deal. Let him think whatever he wants about my skill. The less anyone knows about what synthesis actually does, the better. I asked Zhang Wei about skill proficiency since he'd mentioned it. Turns out most players can see a progress bar for their skills, but mine just says level 1 with no indicator of how to upgrade. Zhang Wei got excited thinking mine might be maxed out from the start, but I told him I'd only used it twice successfully, and there's probably some hidden unlock method. He shared some interesting numbers. Over 100 players in our zone got skills from the random draw, and the vast majority pulled combat-type abilities. Support skills are extremely rare. That's why the deaths of players 3 and 7 hit so hard. They both had support skills. Number 3 could buff people's stats, but decided he was invincible and went to solo fight a wolf on his first day. Number 7 had wound healing but couldn't survive a beast ambush. Luo Shan apparently cried multiple times over losing them. I told Zhang Wei I'm a farming player, not a hunter, hoping he'd realize I'm probably not the healer type he's imagining. He didn't care. He just launched into a long lecture about staying safe and not being reckless, because apparently every support skill player in this zone has a talent for getting themselves killed. The stories he told were ridiculous. One support player had a skill that speeds up animal breeding. He used it on a wild bull, a male bull with no females anywhere nearby. The bull chased him across 2 mountains and destroyed his house. Another player could accelerate plant growth. She sped up a field of wild flowers, which instantly finished blooming and went to seed, and every wild bee in the area swarmed her. She barely survived thanks to health potions. Zhang Wei is a total chatterbox, loves gossip, but he's generous with information. We agreed on the deal, 50 points per litter, 10 points per animal for small batches. After the conversation, I was so exhausted I fell asleep around 3 in the afternoon and didn't wake up until the next morning, missed dinner entirely. But something happened while I slept. Even without trying, my consciousness drifted into that meditative state again, sensing and absorbing those warm points of water energy automatically. When I woke up, I finally understood how spiritual cultivation actually works. It's not something I have to force while sitting still. It can happen naturally during sleep once I know how to let it flow. And the water energy doesn't just build mental strength, it strengthens my body at the same time. I grabbed the kitten and lifted it up in the air, grinning like an idiot. I'd figured it out. But understanding the method also means I'll need more resources and a much safer place to train. This grass shack isn't going to cut it for long. My stats had grown overnight. Base combat power went from 5 to 6, and the water ability bonus climbed from 6 to 8, giving me a total of 14. Not huge, but real progress from spiritual cultivation. My leaf backpack was falling apart, and conveniently today's random task was to swap out a piece of equipment. I bought 10 meters of hemp thread for 80 points and got to work. Made my own needle from a thin stick, carved it down, punched a hole through it with a tiny water bead, and threaded it. Then I folded and stitched the 2 pieces of rough cloth into a bag with a flap lid and tie strings to keep things from bouncing out during runs. Wove thick grass rope into a wide shoulder strap. The system recognized it as a green quality rough cloth backpack with 2 cubic meters of storage. The ones selling for 3,000 points on the market have 16 cubic meters, but mine only cost 280 in materials. I'll take it. Day 5, clear skies all day. I headed out with the kitten to forage. The hillside was covered in mushrooms after the rain. I gathered dozens, including a few more green-quality, unidentified ones for future synthesis. The kitten got to run around freely near me for the first time and exhausted itself completely. By the time we headed home, it was draped over my arm like a limp rag, too tired to even meow. Back home, I washed about 5 pounds of fresh mushrooms and stewed them with salt for lunch. Then I went to check on the rabbit ear grass and found it already showing water insufficient again. I dumped dozens of buckets into it just yesterday. Instead of hauling water endlessly, I dug a shallow channel from the well through the fence and straight to the rabbit eargrass plot. The well's water level sits just barely below ground, so once I connected the trench, water flowed on its own. After about 15 minutes of steady irrigation, the plant skipped 3 full days of growth. The rabbit ear leaves doubled in height to 10 centimeters and sprouted tiny white fuzzy hairs on each leaf. This plant is a water monster, but the payoff is incredible growth speed. I'm genuinely curious what it'll look like when it matures. At this rate, I half expect actual fluffy white rabbit ears growing out of the ground. Zhang Wei messaged me during lunch. He'd found another nest of dying babies, this time 6 freshly hatched chicks. Same deal as before. Unidentified, too fragile to survive without intervention, 50 points for the lot. I bought them and immediately combined all 6 with 3 unidentified plants I'd gathered that morning. Same formula as last time, 100% success rate, 10% mutation chance. But this time there was no mutation. Instead of a plant, I got a single healthy golden chick, a green quality hen that can lay eggs when grown and breed if kept with a rooster. I built a tiny pen next to my shack, a square meter of fenced-off space with grass bedding and a little roof to keep birds away. Crushed up a few mushrooms and scattered them inside. The chick ate everything and its fullness meter hit 100%, health at 98% climbing to full. 7 days until it grows past the baby stage. Zhang Wei checked in later, thrilled that I'd saved one. He still thinks my skill is some kind of healing ability. He accidentally let slip useful information though. Normally you'd need to identify the babies first at 10 points each, then feed them expensive recovery potions just to keep them alive. My synthesis skips all of that and produces a perfectly healthy animal. Even potions can't achieve 100% health recovery. This time the mental drain from synthesis was much lighter. My spiritual power has grown, and since the result didn't mutate or jump quality levels, it cost less energy. That also confirms something important. Combining green materials doesn't guarantee an upgrade. Sometimes you just get a normal green quality result. My earlier idea about getting rich through mass synthesis was too optimistic. Still, a future egg-laying hen for 50 points plus 3 wild mushrooms is a fantastic deal. After lunch, I went back to expanding land around the rabbit ear grass. As soon as I cleared soil next to its border, the vines automatically spread into the new space. The kitten watched the grass creep forward and tried to grab a vine with its paw, then looked confused when it stopped moving. I kept clearing land, and the grass kept following, drinking water from the channel the whole time. It finally stopped expanding when it reached a 10 by 10 meter area, 100 square meters of fuzzy rabbit ear leaves, all from one seed. The rabbit ear grass hit maturity once it filled the full 10 by 10 area. The harvest method is simple, just pick the leaves. Each pair looks exactly like fuzzy white rabbit ears and weighs about a pound. I plucked 105 pairs. The real value is in what they do. Each serving gives any farm animal 1 hour of double growth speed, and there's no quality restriction. It works on any grade of livestock. I kept 5 leaves for my own chick and put the other 100 up for auction individually, with 6-hour timers. Within seconds, bids started rolling in. Players went crazy. The chat channel exploded with people arguing about the listings. The starting price was only 3 points per leaf, but even the smallest portions quickly climbed to 6 or more. Someone pointed out that this type of universal growth boost feed had only appeared about a dozen times total across the whole zone, and never in a batch this large. People debated whether I was a gatherer who got lucky or a farmer who grew them. Most dismissed the farming theory. They figured no plant could mature this fast in just 5 days, even with accelerators. They had no idea about the water mutation shortcut. I checked on my enhanced mushroom while I was outside. Less than a day until it matures. Tomorrow morning should be harvest time. In the evening, Qin Jian messaged me. He'd been talking with Zhang Wei and started getting suspicious. He figured out that a farming player spending 50 points per batch of dying babies doesn't make sense if the skill is healing. The cost would be unsustainable. His theory was that my support skill might actually be identification, letting me skip the 10-point per use identification fee. That way, I'd only need one survivor out of many batches to turn a profit, since even the cheapest viable chick sells for 500 points on the market, and stronger babies go for 1 or 2,000. He's wrong about what my skill actually does, but his logic is sharp. I didn't correct him. The less anyone knows about synthesis, the safer I am. I told Qin Jian I wasn't a healer. I'm a farming player, not a hunter. He accepted that and promised not to share anything. Whether he keeps that promise is his business. The information I've given out isn't anything that could hurt me anyway. My real skill stays secret. The rabbit ear grass auction ended that night. All 100 leaves sold. The highest went for 10 points, the lowest for 8. After the 5% auction fee, I netted 864.5 survival points, bringing my total to 1,441. Real money for the first time. I decided to build an actual house. Sleeping curled up in that tiny grass shack had been miserable from day one, and now I could finally afford materials. Day 6, I woke before dawn and got to work. Tore down the old shack, pulled out the 2 small trees it had leaned on, ripped apart the old fence to make room. I flattened the ground across the whole yard with my pickaxe and shovel, then started buying lumber. 24 wooden posts, each about 20 centimeters thick and over 4 meters long, at 10 points each from the consignment market. Spent over 2 hours peeling bark off every post. Then I dug meter-deep holes and buried the posts upright, 4 corners first, then 8 along the back wall, 5 on each side with gaps for windows, and 4 across the front with space for a door and more windows. For the floor, I hammered short stakes in rows about 20 centimeters above ground level so water could flow underneath during heavy rain, then laid a wooden frame across them with pegged joints. The walls went up next. Hundreds of thin bamboo poles stood upright and lashed together. Bamboo is cheap here, 100 poles for just 10 points. For the roof, I split larger bamboo lengthwise and layered the halves like tiles, higher in the middle and sloping down on both sides. By the time the frame was done, I was completely spent. The house is roughly 80 square meters, simple and square, with window openings on all sides and space for a proper door. No floorboards yet, no real windows or door, just grass mats for now. Those can wait until I have more points and energy. While building, I'd almost forgotten, the enhanced mushroom had matured. I pulled it from the ground, a palm-sized blue-glowing mushroom. The system said it could be used as a food ingredient or medicine ingredient, with a random strengthening effect when eaten. No raw eating allowed though, so I tossed it whole into the iron pot with water. The timer said 8 hours to cook. By the time I finished the house frame, the enhanced mushroom soup was finally ready. The enhanced mushroom had dissolved completely into a half pot of glowing blue soup. The description said it would strengthen my body, but the amount of strengthening depends on how much you eat and how well your body absorbs it. Also, the effect weakens with repeated use of the same quality level. I gave the kitten a tiny drop first. A pea-sized bead of soup floated over using my water control. It swallowed without hesitation, then started rolling on the ground, crying in pain. I held it and rubbed its belly until the faint blue glow sank back into its body, and it fell asleep. Alive, but knocked out. I decided to wait before drinking my share. I finished the day's tasks first. Opened another plot, planted tomato seeds, 180 points for 6 seeds. Rebuilt the fence with salvaged materials. Today's 3 tasks paid well. 10 for farming, 50 for harvesting the blue quality mushroom, and 50 for cooking it into soup. Total income of 110 points. But after buying seeds and all the house building materials, I was down to 112.4 survival points. Zhang Wei messaged about a healthy baby black bear cub he'd found. He wanted more than the usual price. I told him to keep it or sell it himself. A healthy bear cub is worth a fortune, and I'm not going to pretend I need it. He was relieved, admitted he really wanted to keep it, and promised to save me cheap dying babies next time. I didn't take the promise too seriously. Our deal works because it's fair for both sides. The moment someone starts expecting more than what's fair, the relationship breaks down. With everything settled, I sat at my front door and drank the soup. It tasted incredible, sweet and fragrant, impossible to stop once I started. I drained every last drop. The iron pot cracked from overuse and showed as broken. At first, nothing happened. No pain, no swelling, no visible change. I punched through my exercise routine and felt fine. But then I noticed my energy level was absurdly high, like my body was begging to move. I vaulted over the fence and started running laps around my home. The faster I ran, the better it felt. Every muscle, every bone, even my organs seemed to radiate a cool, comfortable sensation. No soreness, no strain, just pure physical pleasure that made me want to keep running and never stop. After 3 hours of sprinting and intense martial arts training, the strengthening finally settled in, and I got an achievement for absorbing over 90% of the enhanced food, 500 survival points. The results were dramatic. My base combat power jumped from 6 to 11, and my water ability bonus went from 8 to 10, giving me a total of 21. My body felt light and powerful, steady feet, strong legs, straight back, punches that cut through the air. Even my eyesight sharpened, letting me see farther and clearer than before. The kitten woke up too, and it had changed. A layer of fine fuzz had shed off onto the grass mat, and while it still looked like the same tiny tabby, its legs were noticeably stronger. It leaped right onto my arm from the floor. When I checked its claws, they were as sharp as an adult cat's. The enhanced food works on animals too, though the system still shows no stats for it, just the species name. The little thing showed me all 4 paw pads and let me squeeze each claw like it was showing off. Definitely getting spoiled. My iron pot had broken from the mushroom soup, so dinner was back to water-soaked buns and pickled vegetables. The house still needed floorboards, just the frame was done, so I spread grass mats inside for the kitten and sat outside to cultivate all night. With my body strengthened, spiritual training felt easier than ever. I meditated until dawn with the kitten purring on my knee. Day 7 brought cold winds, 8th grade gusts, and a temperature drop. Both daily tasks were gathering quests. I picked 13 snake berries from my transplanted vine to finish one, but none turned out to be unidentified this time. The random task needed green quality items, so that one would have to wait. I cleared another 10 square meters and planted 4 potato seeds, 200 points for 21 sprouts. My farm now covers 7 separate plots totaling 156 square meters. Cilantro a week from harvest, cabbage and peppers sprouting, tomatoes just planted, potatoes freshly seeded, and the rabbit eargrass sprawling across its full 100 square meter territory. I noticed that young cilantro and cabbage can technically be picked and eaten during the growth stage, but with seeds costing what they do, pulling up a baby plant for one meal feels like burning money. Luo Shan posted his morning update with a new warning. Special treasure chests exist in the wild, glowing faintly, but always guarded by dangerous beasts or plants nearby. These chests can drop skill books and green-quality crafting materials. Everyone in chat went wild wanting to find one, but Luo Shan stressed caution. Check your surroundings before touching anything. Skills are incredibly rare here. Out of the first 1,000 players in our zone, only 113 got skill books from the Lucky Wheel. The player count is past 20,000 now, so those 113 are treated like precious assets. That's why Zhang Wei works so hard to stay on good terms with me. My random task still needed a green quality gathering item, so I headed out with the kitten riding on my shoulder. It's strong enough now to just cling to my shirt without needing the basket. I circled my side of the mountain finding only ordinary mushrooms, then cut around to the back slope. That's where I struck gold. I found wild greens, a plant I recognized from my old world as bitter herb. Not everywhere, but enough that I dug up over 2 pounds in under an hour. Further up, I found dandelions and shepherd's purse too. By the time I reached the hilltop at noon, I had nearly 20 pounds of wild vegetables and 13 unidentified plants. Great haul. Zhang Wei messaged again. He'd raided a snake nest and was selling me 9 newly hatched baby snakes for 50 points. I bought them immediately. 9 unidentified snake babies could synthesize at 100% success rate, but the result would just be one healthy snake. I don't want a pet snake. The kitten would shred it within days. So I tried adding materials. 9 snake babies plus 9 unidentified plants gave me 100% base success, 10% chance of jumping a quality level, and 50% mutation chance. I tried adding the remaining 4 plants to push those numbers higher, but they didn't budge. There's apparently a cap on how many materials affect the odds. I pulled the extras back and hit synthesize. My mental energy drained fast. The snakes and plants merged into a ball of green light that darkened from bright green to deep emerald. What dropped into my hands was a seed, level 1 mutant snake charm grass, a climbing plant that can be grown on fences or walls. Once it spreads, it can confuse, repel, or even capture level 1 wild creatures. A living defense system for my home. Exactly what a farming player like me needs. I planted the snake charm grass seed right outside my fence by the gate. It grew fast, a 10-centimeter vine that looked exactly like a snake, complete with scale-textured bark. Then 9 smaller snake-like vines branched out in different directions before the plant entered a 6-hour rest period. The kitten poked at it curiously, but waited to see if I'd let it play. I moved its paw away. Another thing that's off limits. I discovered the well water isn't drinkable. The system flagged it as unfiltered with possible bad effects. Even the kitten sniffed the bottle and backed away in disgust. The well works for irrigation and washing, but I still have to buy drinking water at 5 points per bottle. I picked up 10 bottles for 50 points. Then the kitten started hissing furiously outside. A fat white rabbit, at least 20 pounds, had gotten into my field and was eating my rabbit ear grass. I shot a water bead at its head, but it only left a wound. The thing turned and charged me with red eyes blazing. This was no ordinary rabbit. It was a level 1 mutant. I dodged its lunges and kept firing water beads. Each one punched a bloody hole through its fur. Eventually, it weakened and collapsed, and I finished it off with shots to the head. The kill triggered something big. A secondary profession unlocked. My main class is farming, but now I also have hunting as a subclass. That means I can see health bars on wild creatures, learn to set traps, and process animal materials properly. Plus, I got 100 survival points for the achievement. The kitten watched the whole fight from the doorway, claws extending and retracting. It had seen the rabbit's speed and knew it couldn't keep up. I skinned and gutted the rabbit. Each step now had helpful prompts from the hunting subclass. The pelt could be treated with ash for later use. Guts went into the compost pit. I couldn't afford a proper stove from the shop at 500 points, so I built one myself. Mixed mud, stacked stones into a cooking platform, then spent 200 points on a round iron plate and 100 on a blacksmith's hammer. I spent the entire afternoon hammering that flat iron disc into a wok shape. 80 centimeters wide, 20 centimeters deep. No technique, pure brute force. The kitten watched from the window while the baby chick cowered in its pen, terrified by the noise. I set the wok on the mud stove, sealed the edges, and stacked stones for a makeshift chimney. Couldn't afford a real pipe yet. But by nightfall, I had a kitchen. Tonight, we eat rabbit. I set up my new kitchen properly. Chopped the rabbit into pieces, then bought scallions, ginger, garlic, star anise, peppercorns, cinnamon bark, a little of each, just a few points per item. Added a woven bamboo pot lid for 30 points. Then a set of wooden bowls, a plate, and chopsticks for 5 points. By the time I finished shopping, I was down to 3.4 survival points. Completely broke, but finally equipped to cook a real meal. The kitten inspected the wooden plate I'd set in front of it, patted it with its paw a few times, then climbed inside and lay down. It thought I'd given it a new bed. I sat in the yard holding the kitten, looking around at what I'd built. A bamboo house, a fenced yard, a kitchen with a real stove and wok, crops growing in multiple fields, a well with irrigation channels, a guard plant at the gate, a baby chicken in its pen. This was actually starting to feel like home. Then I thought about Qin Jin and Luo Shan and all the information they've been sharing freely. I'd been benefiting from their updates without giving much back. So I messaged Qin Jin and told him about the secondary profession system. How killing a green quality creature outside my main class had unlocked hunting as a subclass. He ran with it immediately, working out the logic. Each profession direction has its own unlock conditions and provides basic support functions as a subclass. Farming gives plant info and care prompts. Hunting gives health bars and butchering guidance. Gathering gives plant identification and basic processing tips. Without subclasses, players are stuck in their own lane with no help. He asked if I wanted credit when they published the information. I said no, I prefer staying quiet. One person and one cat is enough attention for me. 10 minutes later, Luo Shan posted the full breakdown in the public channel with much more detail than what I'd shared, which made me think either he already knew some of this, or other players had been sitting on the information. Either way, it wasn't my concern. I shared what I could without hurting myself. That's enough. Tonight we feast on real stewed rabbit. Tomorrow we go back to being broke and working hard. That's life in this world. The rabbit stew turned out amazing. Green quality food with a 5% boost to movement, recovery, and training speed for 1 hour. First proper meal in 7 days. The kitchen achievement alone paid 100 survival points. The kitten loved the slightly spicy meat, gulping it down fast. We both ate until we were stuffed, then sprawled out in the yard and slept. Before dawn, Zhang Wei woke me up with frantic messages. He'd spent 4 hours fighting in the middle of the night and came away with something bizarre. 7 tiny gourds, each a different color, each the size of a fingertip. They were classified as unidentified animals. Animals. 7 little colored gourds. I asked him if he'd robbed a gourd mountain. He told me to stop watching cartoons and just take them. 50 points for the lot. 7 unidentified animal gourds only gave 77% synthesis success rate, so I added my 4 remaining unidentified plants to push it to 100%, with a 3% mutation chance. The 7 colors flashed, everything merged, and a single white glowing gourd dropped into my palm. A level 1 rainbow treasure, gourd bee larva. The gourd is the shell, and the bee lives inside it. They're one organism. When it matures, the bee separates from the gourd becomes the hive, and the bee can breed and produce honey inside it. Higher quality bees might even emerge from future generations. I told Zhang Wei it survived. His response was basically a stunned curse of amazement, followed by an offer to send over food for the baby bee for free. He just wanted a taste of the honey someday. He sent half a pound of red gourd bee honey stored in a red gourd container. The honey itself turned out to be incredible. Green quality, and every tiny portion, just 0.1 ounces, gives a full hour of 5% strength enhancement. Half a pound means 50 hours of boosted strength. That's an extremely valuable consumable. I also figured out why Zhang Wei had gone out fighting at midnight. The secondary profession announcement had gone public last evening. His skill apparently locates nests of wild creatures, and he'd rushed out immediately to unlock his gathering subclass by raiding a bee colony. Smart move, and his skill is clearly more powerful than he lets on. Not just finding baby animals, but pinpointing exact locations of rare creatures. Day 8, up before dawn. I fed the gourd bee larva by floating tiny drops of honey into its shell with my water control. Just pinprick amounts until it stopped absorbing. Weather forecast said scattered showers, cool temperatures. The snake charm grass had grown a lot overnight. 4 layers of branches now, with meter-long leaves stretching out and clinging to the fence. When I touched it, a vine wrapped gently around my finger, rubbed against me, then let go and went back to the fence. It can tell who belongs here. I tested it with the kitten too. A leaf curled around its head, patted it softly, and released. Safe. It recognizes household members. Leftover rabbit stew for breakfast, still delicious. After eating, I went out to check the fields. The cherry tomatoes had sprouted fuzzy little leaves. The cilantro was nearly 15 centimeters tall, and the smell was getting intense. Even the kitten avoided that section completely. While I was clearing new land, the kitten ran off into the wild grass and came back proudly carrying an earthworm on its claw. The worm was over 20 centimeters long, bigger than the cat itself without its tail. I told it to be more careful, but it was so pleased with itself, head tilting back and forth showing off its catch. I chopped the worm up and fed it to the baby chicken mixed with rabbit eargrass and snake berries. The chick loved it. The combination triggered a special growth boost. 1 earthworm meal skipped a full hour of development time. The chick was only 3 days old but already had tiny wings and was almost as big as the kitten. The kitten dragged back a second earthworm later. It was getting addicted to hunting. I washed its muddy paws in the irrigation channel, and then it just jumped straight into the water to play. A cat that likes water. I'm starting to wonder if this thing is really a cat. When it hopped back onto my hands, I instinctively dried its paws with my water ability. The kitten stared at its suddenly dry paws in amazement, then started rolling around in my hands excitedly. It had discovered a new game. Get wet, jump to me, get instantly dried. repeat. I spent the whole day rebuilding the well properly, chipping stones, stacking them into walls, filling gaps with gravel and sand. The hardest part was using multiple water beads simultaneously to plug the underground springs while I worked, then releasing them once the stone lining was done. The mental drain from maintaining that level of control for so long was way worse than combat. But when I finished, I had a real stone well with a proper platform. The achievement gave me 300 survival points. I was so exhausted I could barely move. Ate the last of the rabbit meat, 15 pounds gone in 4 meals across 2 days. I cobbled together a rough bed frame inside the house from old shack branches, layered grass mats on top, and finally slept indoors with the kitten for the first time. The house still has no walls blocking the wind, no proper door or windows, but at least I'm off the ground. Woke up with a stiff neck. Standing in the yard trying to stretch it out, I had an idea. I condensed 5 water beads and gently tapped them against the back of my neck. The water slowly absorbed into my skin, spreading a cool sensation that dissolved the soreness completely. Within minutes, my neck and shoulders were perfectly fine. So my water ability can heal physical discomfort. I'm not sure if this technically counts as a healing power, but it works on my own body at least. Maybe Zhang Wei's assumption about me being a healer wasn't entirely wrong, just not in the way he imagined. Day 9, clear skies and rising heat. I headed out with the kitten on my shoulder and the little gourd bee hanging from a cord around my neck. Too precious to leave unguarded at home. The kitten proved useful again. It smelled something and meowed toward a clump of trees. I circled around and found a wild rooster doing some kind of mating dance in the grass. With my hunting subclass active, I could read its info. A level 1 mutant chicken, speed-type mutation, currently in mating season with high aggression. It was practicing its courtship display, completely unaware of us. The kitten stretched out its claws, measured the distance, then slumped down with a defeated look. It knew its paws were still too small to get through those feathers. I raised my hand and formed 3 water beads. This rooster wasn't going to find any hens today. 3 water beads hit the rooster's skull from 3 directions simultaneously. It died instantly. Health bar went gray, but the body kept thrashing wildly. This speed mutant chicken's wings were slamming 4-centimeter deep grooves into the dirt and leaving claw marks on nearby trees. I stayed behind a tree until it finally stopped moving. Lesson learned. Kill from a distance and wait it out. I picked up the 12.5-pound carcass after cleaning and kept foraging. Found a strange pure black mushroom that looked like an oversized needle mushroom. Turned out to be just a moldy mushroom, green quality, but inedible without negative side effects. Also noticed that picking up a green quality plant didn't unlock the gathering subclass. Maybe you need higher quality for a second subclass, or maybe it works differently for each profession. The morning haul was decent. The wild rooster, a few pounds of regular mushrooms, 3 unidentified plants, and the moldy mushroom. When I plucked the rooster, 7 tail feathers came off as green quality crafting materials. I tried synthesizing all 7 feathers. This time the system showed percentage breakdowns for possible outcomes. 50% more feathers, 25% accessory, 10% equipment, 8% weapon, 7% unknown. So synthesis can produce gear. That's new. The result was an accessory, a feather collar, green quality, giving 5% speed boost, usable by humans or animals. Not bad stats-wise, but I'm not wearing a chicken feather necklace. The kitten sniffed it, caught a whiff of wild rooster, and jumped away in disgust. Neither of us wanted it. I threw it on auction at the 100-point base price with a 3-hour timer. Within minutes, bidding hit 500 points. Now I knew synthesis could create sellable equipment from basic materials. That's a real income stream once I have more mental energy to spare. Stewed the rooster with mushrooms for lunch, green quality with speed and recovery buffs. After eating, I started calculating costs for finishing the house. I bought stacks of pre-cut wooden planks from the market, which startled the kitten when they materialized on the ground with a thud. Then I got to work fitting them one by one onto the floor frame inside the house. After laying all the floorboards, installing 6 windows and a double door, the house was finally complete. The system recognized it as a proper wooden house and gave me a 500-point achievement. The feather collar I'd auctioned sold for 820 points, but every bit went straight into windows and doors. The daily crafting task counted the house as its completion too. 100 points, the highest random task reward I'd gotten yet. The kitten ran laps across the solid wood floor, thrilled with the space. Everything held firm. No creaking, no wobbling. Before sunset, I dug irrigation channels to each field. The hot weather today had actually boosted the cilantro's growth, cutting a full day off its timer. For days until harvest now. The other crops were progressing normally. Cabbage, peppers, tomatoes, potatoes all at various stages. The rabbit eargrass, though, had stopped its accelerated drinking trick. That first explosive growth must have been a one-time bonus. Zhang Wei messaged me about the secondary profession system, not knowing I was the one who'd leaked the information. He nearly died unlocking his gathering subclass, jumped into a river, and swam underwater for 15 minutes to escape a swarm of bees. He warned me that even a mutant rabbit can seriously hurt anyone under 10 combat power, and suggested using poison or traps to disable creatures before finishing them off barehanded, since it only counts if you kill them yourself. I told him I'd already unlocked hunting, thanks to my cat. I keep giving the kitten credit for my kills. It's a useful cover story. Let people think my cat is some kind of fierce beast. The kitten, sitting on my lap chewing on my fingers, had absolutely no idea it was building a reputation as a deadly predator. Zhang Wei vented about his bear cub. It had eaten over 15 pounds of meat, consumed 5 blood restoration potions worth roughly 5,000 survival points total, and demolished his wooden house. He'd been forced to buy a stone house just so the bear couldn't tear it apart. Meanwhile, someone else in his circle had raised a dozen water snakes with expensive medicine, only for all of them to swim away down the river the moment the door was left open. At least Zhang Wei's bear hadn't run off. Small comforts. Day 10. Luo Shan finally cracked. He posted his usual morning information dump, but then followed it with a long, frustrated message. He reminded everyone that he's just a player too. He needs to work for survival like everyone else. He's not sitting around with unlimited supplies to hand out. He can't monitor private messages around the clock. He was practically begging people to understand. What happened was predictable. After days of free information sharing, some players started treating Luo Shan like their personal customer service. They'd message him demanding 1,000 survival points as support. When he didn't reply fast enough, they accused him of wasting their time. When he wouldn't give handouts, they called him a fraud with hidden motives. The more he gave, the more they expected, and the angrier they got when expectations weren't met. Qin Jin messaged me, sounding hurt. He said he knew this day would come, but it still stung watching people attack someone who'd been helping them for free. He told me that back when they started, Luo Shan had volunteered to be the public face specifically because he claimed he could handle the negativity. Now even he was buckling under it. I'm not great at comforting people, especially idealists. I told Qin Jian that if they want to keep doing this, they have to learn to ignore hostility completely. If they can't, then they should step back and focus on themselves. Nobody gets to have everything. You pick what matters most and accept the rest. He went quiet for a while, then came back saying I sounded like some old sage on a mountain. I told him maybe he should go back to crying about it, and he laughed it off and thanked me. After that conversation, I finished breakfast, reheated chicken soup and mushrooms, fed the kitten some mashed chicken on its plate. Today was another scorcher heading toward 35 degrees. I'd already cleared 10 more square meters and planted 10 cabbages this morning, then watered every field before it got too hot. Now I had a new personal mission, building a proper bed. Not just wooden planks. I wanted something with a real mattress. Comfortable living is the goal now. After breakfast, I headed out with the kitten to gather grass for a mattress. Proper bed cushions made by gathering class players cost way too much, so I'd have to make my own from soft grass. I walked downhill to an area with older, softer grass and started cutting with my sickle, bundling everything into neat stacks. While I worked, the kitten disappeared into the tall grass and came back dragging a small white snake it had killed. I praised it and put the snake in my bag for dinner. By the time I'd cut 8 bundles, it brought back a second one. This cat definitely has a grudge against anything long and slithery. Back home, I spread the grass out in the sun and beat it with sticks to soften the stalks and leaves as they dried. In between, I bought more wooden planks and built a proper bed frame, 1.8 by 2.2 meters, big enough to actually stretch out. By evening, whatever grass hadn't dried naturally, I pulled the moisture out with my water ability. I stitched grass mats together as a base layer, then stuffed about 10 centimeters of the dried, softened grass on top, covered with a woven grass sheet. Not exactly luxury, but compared to curling up in that tiny shack or sleeping on bare planks, this was heaven. Zhang Wei messaged that evening. He hadn't gone hunting, partly because of the drama around Luo Shan, and partly because someone who'd promised to make him a new weapon had been too upset to bother. Without better gear, he couldn't take on the wolf pack he'd been eyeing. I told him to eat well and sleep it off. Tomorrow's another day. He assured me he was fine. His real frustration was about the weapon, not the community drama. He said Luo Shan isn't actually fragile, just needs time to cool down on his own. Trying to comfort him only makes it worse. Then we chatted about pets. He swore he'd train his house-wrecking bear cub to behave. I had my doubts. After the chat, I took the kitten out to water every field through the irrigation channels. 2 hours of opening and closing trenches. Fed the chicken, fed the gourd bee, checked the snake charm grass. Then we went inside and collapsed onto the new bed. First time in this world I could actually lie flat and stretch out. The kitten curled up next to me, and we both slept wonderfully. Day 11. Temperatures pushing toward 37 degrees. The daily tasks included harvesting for the first time. My cilantro is almost ready. I noticed Luo Shan had gone completely silent. No morning post, no evening post. Some players mocked him for quitting, others blamed the people who drove him away, and a few actually complained that he didn't announce he was stopping, wasting their time waiting. People never change. A flock of geese flew overhead, but they were too high for me to reach with water beads, and I couldn't tell their level. Not worth the risk. The kitten jumped onto my shoulder before I even called. It had gotten used to our daily morning runs and was impatiently reminding me we hadn't left yet. Today's patrol distance was 5,000 meters, taking me almost to the base of the mountain. Standing on a rock looking downhill at thick trees and grass taller than a person, I decided to keep going and explore. I moved slowly, cutting a 2-meter-wide path as I went so I could retreat quickly if needed. It paid off immediately. Less than 100 meters down, I found a bush covered in tiny red berries, 38 total, 4 of which triggered the unidentified notification. Further along, while cutting tall grass, I felt something different in my hand. A fuzzy dark green branch, 20 centimeters long. I dug up its root system and got a second unidentified notification. Good finds keep coming the farther you go from home. Then things got strange. I was cutting and searching, completely focused, when I suddenly straightened up and realized the grass around me was over 2 meters tall. I'm 1.85 meters and couldn't see over it even on tiptoes. That shouldn't have happened. I'm normally aware of my surroundings. It was like something had gradually drawn me deeper without me noticing. And then I realized the kitten on my shoulder had gone completely still. No meowing, no fidgeting, no pawing at things. Not even its claws moved. It was frozen silent in a way I'd never seen before. Something was very wrong. I backed up 20 meters to the path I'd cleared and stared at that wall of impossibly tall grass. Every instinct told me to go no further. The kitten wasn't just quiet. It was frozen, pupils narrowed to slits, staring at the tall grass. When I whispered its name, it snapped awake with a terrified hiss followed by a scream, glaring at whatever was hiding ahead. I stuffed it inside my shirt against my chest and started backing up along the path I'd cleared. Step by step, I could hear it behind me. Something in the grass was moving, not wind, because only one section swayed while everything else stayed still. Whatever it was tracking me. When I reached the big rock near the edge of the safe zone, 4 vine tendrils shot out, 2 from the front, 1 from each side, aiming at my arms and legs. I grabbed the rock's edge and vaulted up, but the vines changed direction and wrapped around both ankles. Sharp thorns pierced my skin. The thing was trying to drink my blood. The kitten tried to leap out and fight. I held it down. Then I drained the water from the vines, and they crumbled to dust. I turned and ran. 6 more vines chased me this time, seemingly without any length limit, whipping at me from every angle. Each time they got close, I pulled the moisture out of them to buy a few more seconds. My spiritual energy was draining fast. I kept running uphill, bleeding from both ankles, until I could see my front gate. The vines finally reached their limit about 3 meters behind me, going rigid and stretching no further. With the last of my mental energy, I locked onto a half-meter section, drained everything beyond it, and snapped it off. The severed piece dropped to the ground. The rest retracted instantly, vanishing without leaving a trace in the dirt. The piece I'd cut was blue quality, a blood-soul vine branch, classified as an advanced gathering material. Just a twig from that monster was already higher grade than almost anything I'd seen. I stumbled through my gate, closed it, and collapsed in the yard. Then the notifications hit me all at once. Cutting that blue quality material with my own ability had unlocked my second subclass, gathering. With all three professions now active, farming, hunting, gathering, the system combined their basic functions and triggered a special achievement called Well-Rounded Development. The reward was massive. 600 survival points, a level 1 strengthening potion, and a random skill book. The potion was similar to the enhanced mushroom soup, but weaker, level 1 green quality. I pocketed it for later since my body was in no shape to absorb anything. The skill book opened into a spinning wheel, just like my first day. I called stop, and it landed on a farming support skill. Plant communication, level 1. It lets me talk to mutant plants I've grown, and good communication supposedly provides various farming bonuses. The skill even has a visible progress bar this time, 0 out of 100. But I couldn't think about any of that. My spiritual energy was nearly gone, my ankles were torn open, and I was barely conscious. During the escape, I'd somehow managed to wrap water ropes around my wounded ankles to seal the blood vessels and start basic repairs, a breakthrough in my water control that I didn't fully understand yet. The injuries weren't life-threatening, but the pain would last until morning. The kitten crawled out from my collar, eyes wet with tears, and pressed its little head against my chin, trembling. I stroked its fur until it calmed down, then closed my eyes and passed out. While I slept, the snake charm grass on my fence raised its leaves like sentinels, scanning the surroundings. Its roots had grown deeper, drinking water from the channel, and its strongest vine had already climbed a quarter of the way around the fence. It was protecting our home. I woke up to Zhang Wei bombarding me with over 20 messages. They started normal, sharing his daily hunt results, asking how I was doing, but gradually turned frantic. By the end, he was just sending, "Wake up," over and over, threatening to beat me up if I was scaring him on purpose, offering to lend me recovery potions. I'd been unconscious since the afternoon, and it was nearly midnight. I told him I was alive. He calmed down and asked again if I needed medicine. I thanked him but declined. My water healing had done enough to stabilize my ankles, and my spiritual energy was almost recovered after the long sleep. Before doing anything else, I held the kitten and let thin water vapor seep from my palms into its body as I stroked its fur. The encounter with the blood-soul vine had shaken it badly, both physically and mentally. Looking at the kitten more carefully, I realized something. The wounds on its legs when I first found it looked almost identical to the punctures on my own ankles. That vine was probably the same thing that had nearly killed this little cat. It must have been smaller back then, maybe fed on something special to grow to the monstrous size I'd encountered. The kitten woke up, stretched its paws open, and waved at me. That's our game. It opens its paw pads. I squeeze them. We both feel better. Even after everything that happened, its first instinct was to play. It was almost midnight, and I had to harvest the cilantro before the day rolled over. I wrapped cloth around a stick for a crude torch, opened the gate, patted the snake charm grass hello, and limped out to the field with the kitten on my shoulder keeping watch. The cilantro had grown to nearly a meter tall, each plant weighing 2 to 3 pounds. I squatted down and pulled them up one by one, teeth clenched against the ankle pain. All 420 plants, piled up in the field. 2 harvest achievements triggered at once, 50 points for the first vegetable and 500 for reaching 100. And among all those plants, one special item dropped, a single green quality cilantro seed. This isn't for eating, it's a breeding seed. Plant it, let it flower and go to seed, and it produces more plantable seeds. Without this drop, I'd have to keep buying seeds from the shop every time. Lucky break. But now I had a mountain of cilantro to deal with. I can eat it, but only as seasoning, not as a main dish. I checked the auction prices, and they actually looked pretty decent. I listed all 419 cilantro plants on the auction with 12-hour timers. Each one weighed between 2 and 3 pounds, starting prices around 5 points based on weight. Over 1,000 pounds total. Even at minimum prices, that's over 2,000 survival points. Of course, if I thought about what those 420 seeds would cost to buy from the shop, 20 points each, 8,400 total. The math was depressing. And cilantro isn't exactly popular. If only these had been cabbages. I checked my stats before sleeping. My profile now showed a proper class label. Level 1 farming with a progress bar, plus A, basic all-round survivor, title from unlocking all 3 professions. My combat power had climbed to 13 base. The near-death escape added a breakthrough point, and the farming class tag contributed another. But the real jump was in water control, from 12 bonus points to 25. That life-or-death fight against the Blood Soul Vine had forced a massive leap in ability. I also had 2 new skills now, a bag full of unidentified materials and fruits, the Blood Soul Vine branch, that precious green-quality cilantro breeding seed, and over 1,800 survival points. A lot gained for one terrifying day. I fed the animals, ate a quick meal, patted the snake charm grass goodnight, and crawled into bed. I was completely spent. Then I dreamed. I saw fire. The old fraud was burning, his body twisted and broken, flames consuming him from within. But his voice was clear. "Brat, watch carefully. This is the last time I'll teach you." A figure made of pure flame moved through a complete training sequence while I watched. My consciousness followed along, mirroring every motion. He used fire. I used water. They shouldn't have been compatible, but somehow we synchronized perfectly. Spiritual cultivation, elemental control, energy absorption, and strengthening. Everything he'd tried to cram into my head during those final moments years ago was finally unlocking, sinking deep into my soul where I'd never lose it. Then the fire vanished, and I was a little boy again, running through a grove of trees by a stream. I found the old man sitting there, roasting a fish he'd supposedly never liked. "Old fraud, I thought you didn't eat fish." "Shut up, brat. What are you doing here covered in dirt? Your grandmother will skip your dinner again. One missed meal won't kill me. Give me a bite of that fish. You'll eat anything. Aren't you afraid I'll sell you off like everyone says?" "Sell me for what? How about you just raise me instead? Nobody wants you. Nobody wants me. You raise me. I'll take care of you when you're old. Deal? You think you'll outlive me, brat? Hey, don't curse me. Come on, be my master. Like in those TV shows, master and student, living together. Dream on. Master, want more fish? I'll catch some. No, master, this one looks really tasty. Shut up. Master, here. You eat first. Give it here, you little rascal. After you, master, you brat. Who did you even take after? I was crying in my sleep. That dream was a memory, a lesson, and a goodbye, all woven into one. Everything he'd taught me in those burning final seconds had finally settled into place. And with it, the last echo of his voice faded away. I woke up past noon. The dream about my master lingered. It had been a real lesson hidden inside a memory, the final gift he'd planted in my mind years ago, only now fully unlocking. I held the kitten against my face for a while. The little thing pressed its paws against my cheeks and nuzzled me, sensing something was off. I told it not to worry. My master had finished everything he wanted to do before the end. The people who hurt him got what they deserved. But revenge doesn't erase the suffering that already happened. Getting close to people is always a risk. You never know who'll turn on you. Zhang Wei had sent 3 more check-in messages, escalating toward panic again. I replied quickly before he could flood my inbox. He offered to lend me up to 1,000 survival points. I told him I genuinely didn't need it, because the cilantro had sold. All 419 plants, auctioned overnight. The lowest went for 16 points, the highest for 24. After fees, I netted 8,359 survival points. Combined with what I already had, my total crossed 10,000 for the first time. Those free starter seeds had finally proven their worth. With real money in hand, I started planning. I looked into crop nutrient solution for the accelerator I'd gotten at the start, but never used. It costs 200 points per 10 pounds from consignment, and the accelerator burns through half a pound per hour over a 10 by 10 area. Running it non-stop would cost 240 points per day. I did the math on the rabbit ear grass. It needs 5 more days to mature, which the accelerator would cut to 2.5. Total nutrient cost, roughly 1,800 points. Last harvest sold for only 864 points. Purely for profit, it's a terrible deal. But there's more to it than money. Harvesting plants gives farming class experience. From what I can calculate, each ordinary vegetable gives 1 experience point when picked. The The rabbit eargrass gave 100 points last time for its leaves. I need 10,000 experience to reach level 2 farming. Regular vegetables alone would take forever, and they barely break even after seed costs anyway. A cabbage that weighs just over a pound sells for about 10 points at auction, the same price as the seed to grow it. Farming doesn't make money unless you have special plants. It's basically paying for experience. I bought 10 barrels of nutrient solution, 2,000 points, loaded them into the accelerator, and switched it on over the rabbit eargrass field. A mist of nutrients sprayed from the nozzles, covering the entire plot. The growth timer dropped from 5 days to 2.5. Expensive? Yes, but special harvests bring special drops, and I need that experience. Sometimes you have to spend money to make progress. Day 12, blazing hot, nearly 39 degrees. I sat under the fence rubbing leaves with the snake charm grass while reviewing my new integrated profession abilities. The Basic All-Round Survivor title sounds impressive but is extremely basic. It just means I can see names and health bars on wild animals and plants, and I know the basic steps for processing materials like tanning hides or drying herbs. How to actually craft or process anything advanced. Figure it out yourself. That's how this world works. The system gives you the bare minimum, and everything else is trial and error. I checked the Blood Soul Vine branch I'd grabbed yesterday. Blue quality, listed as a material that can be processed or have essence extracted. How to extract it? No idea. Same with the berries. Edible and craftable, but no instructions. The kitten bounced back from yesterday's terror faster than I did. It was already out dragging earthworms home like nothing had happened. I'd been worried it would be too scared to play alone, but apparently its mental recovery speed is better than mine. I've learned to use its behavior as a threat detector now. Relaxed and playful means safe. Hissing means moderate danger, and if it goes completely rigid and silent like yesterday, we run. The front of the mountain was baking. Even the snakeberry vine looked half dead. So I took the kitten over to the back slope where the trees provided some shade. I bought an iron trowel for 8 points and started digging wild greens under the trees. That's when I discovered something amazing about the kitten. While I was digging, I pulled up an unidentified plant root from the soil. The kitten sniffed it with great interest, then jumped down and started searching the ground on its own, pawing away dry leaves, sniffing the dirt, moving to a new spot, sniffing again. Then it stopped, meowed at me, and scratched at the soil. I dug where it pointed. Another unidentified root, buried over 10 centimeters deep. This little cat can smell special plants through the ground. I thought back to the cilantro field where it had pulled weeds but never touched a single crop. It had been sorting by scent all along. My not even 2-month-old kitten has a search and locate ability for rare materials. I cleared the ground with a rake so it could work more easily without hurting its tiny paws on dead brush. Then we fell into a rhythm. I'd clean a section, it would sniff around and mark spots. I'd dig. One find after another, the kitten practically glowing with pride every time I praised it. We spent the whole afternoon on the back mountain, the kitten sniffing out buried roots while I dug them up. It would work for a while, then rest, then go again. By evening it was curled into a ball in my arms, completely spent. Great haul though. Back home I put the kitten down to nap and went out to tend the fields. Weeding, watering, building support frames for the tomato plants with sticks and grass rope. The earliest batch of cabbages was starting to form little hearts in the center. The 2 chili plants had grown to over 30 centimeters with flower buds appearing between the leaves. Everything needed water badly in this heat. While working I scrolled through the chat channel. Player count was past 30,000 now. The big drama today was about a 12-year-old girl, player number 31,912. Who'd been in this world alone for 10 days, built her own shelter from rocks and branches, and recently found a stray puppy to keep her company. Somehow her parents were also in this zone and had found her through the chat. Instead of being relieved, they were publicly scolding her for wasting time on a dog. The whole channel erupted defending her. People pointed out that a growing dog would eventually protect her, that she'd survived alone at 12 years old, and that her parents should be trying to find and help her instead of screaming at her through chat. Zhang Wei chimed in about how parents used to let kids raise animals to build responsibility. A teenager backed him up, saying his own parents blamed him for all their problems and got his teacher fired for suggesting they give him space. I read through it quietly. Some families finding each other here is a blessing. For others, it's just bringing the same misery into a new world. A player named Su Yin posted a green quality storage cabinet for trade. 10 cubic meters of space with preservation effects that extend food shelf life to 120%. Tempting, but she only wanted blue quality gathering materials in exchange. I have exactly one piece of blue material, and it's probably worth more than the cabinet. Past. The hot weather had dropped the well's water level below the irrigation channel. I'd been hauling buckets for a while when I decided to try something different. I sent several water beads down to the bottom of the well, guided them into the underground water openings, and carefully widened them by chipping away from inside. The water surged up immediately. No more bucket hauling for now. I sat down in the yard with the kitten in my lap and spread out everything I'd gathered over the past 2 days. 1 cilantro breeding seed, the blood soul, vine branch, 3 unidentified plants, 17 unidentified root systems, and 4 unidentified fruits. The kitten's searching ability had really paid off. 16 of those roots came from today alone. I started synthesizing the roots in batches of 6. The first batch merged into a level 1 sweet potato seed, green quality, plantable, and breedable. The second batch became a level 1 leek root, also green quality with breeding capability. 2 self-sustaining crops from materials that cost me nothing but digging effort. I hugged the kitten and told it that cuddling cats brings good luck. Then I got ambitious. I combined all the remaining materials together, 3 plants, 5 roots, and 4 fruits, 12 pieces total with a 50% mutation chance. The green light deepened and deepened until a faint blue shimmer appeared. What dropped into my hand was a level 2 fragrant bamboo seedling, blue quality. It's classified as a support-type plant, something I didn't even know existed for vegetation. It boosts crop yield within its 10 by 10 meter range, 10% during seedling stage, 20% during growth, 30% at maturity. 30 days just to finish the seedling phase though, so this is a long-term investment. After sunset, I went to the east side of my fence and cleared a fresh 100 square meter plot specifically for breeding. I planted the bamboo seedling in the center, then carefully placed the cilantro breeding seed, the sweet potato, and the leek root in separate spots around it. All 3 showed 1 day until sprouting. Green quality plants grow noticeably faster than ordinary vegetables, which is a relief. I threw together a short makeshift fence around this breeding plot using firewood branches. Only half a meter tall with big gaps, but enough for tonight. This area needs to stay separate and protected. These breeding plants are my path to never buying seeds again. As it got dark, I sat outside the main fence and rested my hand against the snake charm grass, letting a leaf drape over my fingers. Time to try my new skill, plant communication. It's not talking. It's more like sharing emotions and mental nudges with my mutant plants, calming them, guiding their growth direction, building a connection through small interactions. A very different kind of support skill from synthesis, and one that only works with plants I've grown myself. After the syntheses, I sat against the fence with the kitten in my lap and tried using plant communication on the snake charm grass. It reached a leaf over and rested it in my palm. Through the connection, I could feel its intentions. It was working hard to protect our home, pushing its roots deeper for nutrients, drinking as much water as possible to grow faster and stronger. I felt bad for it. I wanted to give it something. I pulled out that moldy black mushroom, green quality, but inedible for animals or humans. I let the snake charm grass touch it and checked its reaction through our link. The leaf started trembling. Then its edge split open into a mouth and swallowed the mushroom whole. The kitten saw the entire thing. This leaf it had been playing with for days, batting around and wrestling. It just opened a mouth and ate something. The kitten curled into a ball in my arms with the most betrayed look I've ever seen on a cat. Its playmate had turned into a monster right before its eyes. I understood the feeling. Imagine your friend suddenly revealing they're an alien. After feeding, the snake charm grass went quiet and started digesting. I carried the traumatized kitten inside. We ate steamed buns and passed out. Next morning, day 13, temperatures hit 42 degrees. Brutal. The chat was already full of people reporting heatstroke cases. I rushed out before sunrise to water every field and connect irrigation channels to the new breeding plot. The snake charm grass had gone crazy overnight. After eating that mushroom, it grew over 30 meters in one night, completely encircling the breeding plot's 3 exposed sides with its vine fence. That was more growth than the previous several days combined. When I touched it to say good morning, it wrapped around my wrist affectionately, then went right back to growing. I bought a fat rabbit from the market for 120 points since we hadn't hunted in a while. Meat is necessary. Going too long without it causes fatigue and poor recovery. At least that's my judgment. Qin Jian messaged with a weather warning. He and other players had been discussing the abnormal heat and believed dangerous weather events were coming. Drought, sudden floods, or mudslides. He told me to be extra careful as a farming player. He also mentioned that even hunters with strong builds were collapsing from heat exposure yesterday, so I should avoid working in direct sun. I thanked him for the concern. I think he might picture me as some frail farmer who can barely swing a hoe, which is a little funny considering my combat power, but I didn't correct him. Kindness deserves a thank you, not an argument. After breakfast, I hiked to the mountaintop with the kitten to study the terrain. If heavy rain comes after this extreme heat, I need drainage channels to protect my home and fields. This whole hillside will eventually be my farmland, so I have to preserve as much topsoil as possible. The kitten started overheating on my shoulder within minutes, so I stuffed it inside my shirt collar. It poked its head out and looked at me with concern. It was out of the sun now, but I wasn't. I told it I just needed a few more minutes to memorize the layout, then we'd go home. Back inside, I spent the entire morning weaving a wide-brimmed straw hat. Pointed top, broad enough to shade my shoulders and cover the kitten on its perch. When I tested it by pouring a bucket of water over my head, most of the water ran off the edges. Good enough. Any slow seepage I can just pull out with my water ability. After a late lunch of leftover rabbit stew and steamed buns, I headed out to dig. Starting from a shallow depression near the mountaintop, I carved a drainage channel downhill following the route I'd planned. Picked to break the soil, shovel to clear rocks and dirt, hour after hour in the heat. By evening I'd dug over 500 meters of trench, about 2 meters wide. I was completely wiped out. I also used water mist to wrap my body like a cooling layer, which helped with muscle soreness. The kitten stayed on my shoulder the whole time, serving as my early warning system for danger while I focused on digging. Zhang Wei messaged me that evening and was confused when I told him what I was doing. He'd just torn down his house and moved to the mountaintop to avoid flooding. Why was I killing myself digging trenches instead of relocating? I explained. I can move my house, but I can't move my fields. Over 150 square meters of crops at various growth stages, breeding plots with irreplaceable green quality seeds, the rabbit eargrass, the fragrant bamboo, the snake charm grass wrapped around my fence. If a flood washes away the topsoil from this hillside, I lose everything. Not just this season's harvest, but my entire future farming capacity. There's no other spot on this mountain as good as what I've built. Digging drainage is a massive job, but abandoning it all would be worse. Zhang Wei admitted he'd never thought about farming. He'd grown up learning fighting, business, and survival tactics, but never how to grow anything. He apologized for the dumb suggestion about moving and left me to work. The chat channel was full of flood preparation debates. Most players defaulted to just move to higher ground, but a few voices pushed back. One player pointed out that fleeing works once, but what about next time? Crops take days or weeks to mature. You can't just start over after every storm. Another mentioned that even mountaintops aren't guaranteed safe during real flooding. Some players had rare mutant plants they'd nearly died to obtain and couldn't bear to abandon. I kept digging through the night, carving trenches on both sides of my hillside down to below my fields. I stayed well above the area where the blood soul vine lurks. Daytime is risky enough. Nighttime would be suicidal. By nearly midnight, both channels were roughed in, and I headed home with the kitten, completely exhausted. Then the kitten shrieked at our house. Something was hiding underneath the raised floor of my cabin. Through the snake charm grass's communication, I pieced together what happened. A young wolf had stumbled into the snake charm grass, gotten confused and disoriented by its power, then panicked and ran blindly into our yard. The grass was actually upset, not because of the intruder, but because its vines weren't long enough to catch it. My plant has pride issues. I put the kitten on the fence with the snake charm grass and jumped over the wall. A few water droplets herded the wolf pup out from under the house. It was a half-grown wolf, maybe 30-something pounds. It snarled at me, and after sizing me up, noticing my trembling muscles and exhausted state, it lunged for my throat. Too slow. I caught its skull with one hand while four hair-thin water ropes lashed around its legs and stretched it out in midair. My body was wrecked, but my mental energy was still functional enough for this. I carried the suspended wolf to the fence and called the kitten down. It took a moment to understand what I wanted. I grabbed its paw, extended its claws, and mimed a slashing motion toward the wolf. The kitten's eyes went wide. It looked at me for confirmation. Really? I can. I nodded. The kitten leaped up, both front claws gleaming under the moonlight. One swipe tore the wolf's throat wide open. Full health bar to 0 in a single strike. A cat killing a wolf, with a little help from its human holding the target perfectly still. After the kitten killed the wolf, a prompt appeared asking if I wanted to register it as a domesticated animal. I confirmed, and a soft green glow washed over it. Checking my stats, the kitten now showed up as a household war beast, a level 1 mutant cat with traits listed as alert, speed, and sharp claws. My little kitten officially had an identity in this world. Then the snake charm grass tugged at my sleeve. Through our communication link, it was asking if it could eat the wolf. I'd assumed it only ate plants, but it reminded me. It was synthesized from snakes and plants together. It eats anything, meat or vegetable, toxic or nutritious, as long as it won't burst from overeating. I released the water ropes holding the wolf's body and let the grass have it. A thin new vine emerged from the nearest joint, slithered into the wound the kitten had torn open, and branched into dozens of tiny tendrils inside the carcass. In under 5 minutes, every bit of flesh and bone was consumed. All that remained was a perfectly intact wolf pelt, green quality, already processed into usable material. No skinning required. The kitten jumped down and stomped on one of the retreating grass leaves. The snake charm grass sighed, or the plant equivalent, then gently wrapped 2 bigger leaves around the cat, lifted it up, and carefully freed the pinned leaf. The kitten immediately turned the whole thing into a swing, dangling and rocking back and forth happily. Those two have the strangest friendship. At midnight, day 14's weather updated. Thunderstorms coming, temperatures between 39 and 44 degrees. Players who study weather patterns predicted clear skies during the day, thunder showers in the early evening, then possible heavy rain after midnight. Exactly what I'd been preparing for. I ate, fed everyone, and collapsed into bed. My muscles ached from the hardest physical labor I'd done in years. I slept 5 hours and woke at dawn still sore everywhere. Then I remembered the level 1 strengthening potion sitting on my nightstand, completely forgotten during the chaos. I drank it and went straight back to digging. Figured the physical work would help absorption without needing separate exercise. The potion kicked in while I swung the pickaxe, and I just kept going nonstop all morning. Burned through over a dozen iron pickaxes. By the time the strengthening finished, my base combat power had climbed from 13 to 15, and my water control bonus went up 1 more point to 26. Zhang Wei checked in again at lunch. He'd actually tried digging trenches himself after our conversation and now understood how brutal the work is. He kept offering to lend me recovery potions, clearly frustrated that I won't borrow anything. I think it bothers him. He's used to people accepting help, and I keep politely refusing. It's not stubbornness. I just genuinely don't need it. The rabbit stew had boiled down to meat porridge after days in the pot, and this was the last serving. I ate it with a steamed bun while the kitten had its share, then got ready for one more afternoon of clearing rocks from the trenches before the storm arrives. Zhang Wei kept trying to get me to accept help. He raised his loan offer from 1,000 to 2,000 survival points. I told him I'd ask when I actually needed it, and left it at that. After lunch, the air turned thick and suffocating. Clouds were moving fast overhead. I grabbed my straw hat and went back out to finish clearing the drainage channels, hauling rocks, shoveling gravel, sweating through my clothes while the kitten sat silently on my shoulder under the hat's shade. It watched my sweat drip onto the hot stones and evaporate instantly, clearly worried but unable to do anything about it. By 4 in the afternoon, the sky was packed with dark clouds and the air was unbearable. But I'd finished. 2 major trenches running down the mountainside, 2 smaller channels around the fields, and drainage ditches between every plot. Not perfect, but enough to handle 90% of any flood damage. I rushed home and kept working, digging small ditches between my garden beds, moving the chicken to a sheltered spot under the eaves. Finally, at 6:30, everything was done. I stood by the well and dumped bucket after bucket of water over myself. Gave the kitten a bath too. It looked hilariously tiny with wet fur plastered down, mewing pitifully until I pulled the water out and fluffed it back to normal. I had a quiet moment with the snake charm grass. Then the first raindrops fell. Standing in the doorway with the kitten on my shoulder, we listened to the thunder rolling in. The suffocating heat was finally breaking. The chat channel was buzzing. Someone warned people to stay indoors because lightning could kill. Then Player 12, the original Zhang Wei, #1, posted something strange. He thought he saw something moving inside the clouds. That got immediately buried when dozens of other Zhang Weis popped up for a name reunion, which spiraled into people searching for family members and friends. Then I got a notification. The rabbit eargrass had matured early. The rain had triggered accelerated ripening. I rushed out with my hat and harvested 168 leaves this time, more than the previous batch. I carried the kitten back through the gate and closed it behind me. That's when the kitten screamed. I leaped sideways onto the well rim. A vine spear shot through the rain fog from beyond the fence, stabbing into the exact spot where I'd been standing a split second before. The blood soul vine. It had followed me all the way up to my front door. I'd been too busy with drainage work to deal with this threat, and now it had come to me. But this time, it had made a mistake. It had reached inside my territory. Whatever piece entered my yard was going to stay here. Permanently. The blood soul vine kept attacking through the rain. I dodged and cut. Every time a tendril got close, I drained its water at a single point and snapped it off. Each severed piece went straight into my backpack, so it couldn't regenerate. For pieces collected in the first few exchanges. The kitten clung to my shirt in silence during every dodge, only calling out when it smelled something. It pointed me toward the vine's real hiding spot. Behind my house, in the drainage trench I'd dug that afternoon, sat two tangled masses. The main body was a black-red ball of twisted vines big enough to block the entire meter-wide channel. Connected to it by a single dark-veined cord was a smaller white-rooted ball about the size of a basketball. Then I noticed something. Every time thunder cracked, the vine flinched. Its attack stuttered for just an instant, and its surface repelled water completely. Not a single raindrop stuck to it. It clicked. This thing generates some kind of electromagnetic field at its level of mutation. Rain conducts electricity. The trees and grass downhill were all soaked, making the lower mountain a death trap for it. It had climbed up here because my hilltop was the driest, most sheltered spot. My house was the perfect hiding place from the storm. It wasn't hunting me. It was trying to move in. I threw off my straw hat back into the yard, jumped over the fence, and charged straight at it. Vines lashed out from both sides, trying to block me. I severed several and reached the top of the stone pile overlooking the trench. Lightning flashed. Below me, the two plant masses huddled in the ditch, connected by that single bloody cord. 8 vines launched at me simultaneously, locking onto my wrists, ankles, arms, and legs from all directions. This time I didn't dodge. I let them grab me. I tucked the kitten into my shirt, crouched down, pulled my arms and legs together, and rolled onto my back spinning like a top. The motion twisted all 8 vines into a bundle. I locked them together with a ring of compressed water, then simultaneously drained the moisture from 8 connection points where the thorns had pierced my skin. All 8 vines snapped at once, their severed ends falling away from my bleeding wounds. The pain was sharp and immediate, punctures on my wrists, ankles, arms, and legs, all bleeding. But pain made me sharper. I knew I had exactly one chance at this. I flung the 8 captured vines skyward using a water ring, letting rainwater stream down their surfaces. When lightning crackled through the clouds, it found the wet vines and followed them straight down into the blood soul vine's main body on the ground. The key was something I remembered from school. Pure water doesn't conduct electricity. I'd been instinctively purifying the water around my feet, so the lightning scattered across the rocks and soil, but passed right around me. The kitten screamed from inside my shirt when the flash hit, but we were untouched. Several strikes later, the system confirmed the kill. A level 3 mutant creature. Achievements for both level 2 and level 3 kills stacked up, totaling 3,500 survival points. And somehow it counted as hunting, not gathering. My body was giving out. I started dragging charred vine pieces back toward the yard, but couldn't carry it all. I called the snake charm grass for help. It had been desperately growing new vines trying to reach the fight, but arrived too late. Now it stretched its leaves over the fence and started hauling debris back for me. Down in the drainage trench, among the ashes of the main body, I found a palm-sized root chunk. Purple quality, level 3 mutant plant material. The third gathering achievement triggered for another 3,000 points. This root was labeled as something that could be cultivated, which is different from breeding. A new concept I'd figure out later. I told the snake charm grass it could eat the leftover scraps, broken fragments, twisted bits, anything I didn't keep. It devoured everything eagerly, each piece being at minimum blue quality material. The nutrition surge was enormous. By the time I'd washed up and headed inside, the grass had grown another 4 or 5 meters. I kept 12 straight blood soul vine branches and 18 lightning-struck vine segments, all cut to 1 meter lengths. Everything else went to the snake charm grass. While we slept through the thunderstorm, rain escalating from showers to downpour to full storm, the snake charm grass worked through the night. It crawled across the entire perimeter of my fence, hardened its base vines into rigid structures, then grew a second layer on top, taller, denser, stronger. It had watched the blood soul vine's tendrils come over the top of my fence, and it understood. The wall needed to be higher and tougher. It even practiced opening and closing the gate, mimicking how I do it, so it could operate the entrance itself. By dawn, faint light pulsed through its growing vines. The color shifted through the night, deep green, then darker, and by morning, a soft blue glow. The snake charm grass was evolving. I woke to the sound of heavy rain hammering the roof. Part of me wanted to roll over and go back to sleep. Rainy days are perfect for that. But I couldn't. My fields might be flooding, my drainage channels might be blocked. When I stepped outside, water in the yard was already over my ankles. Day 15, full-on downpour. Temperatures dropped to the low 20s after days of extreme heat. Wind picking up too. Then I saw my fence and froze. The snake charm grass had evolved overnight to level 2, blue quality. The walls were now 2.5 meters tall. It had grown a whole second layer on top of the original fence, dense and hard. And when I walked toward the gate, it opened by itself. The grass had learned how to operate the door by watching me. It could now confuse, repel, or capture level 2 wild creatures instead of just level 1. The kitten leaped onto the grass leaves immediately, rolling around happily on the flat surface its friend had shaped for it. Whatever shock it felt about the grass eating that wolf was apparently forgotten. I headed out to check every field. The breeding plot looked good. The fragrant bamboo had shot up to 10 centimeters overnight in the rain. The cilantro had 3 leaves. The leek had sprouted 2 small purple-tinted blades, and the sweet potato was thriving with 5 shoots already poking through and more on the way. The regular crops were a different story. The earliest batch of 20 cabbages was 2 days from harvest, but waterlogged. The system warned that excess moisture could rot the roots. I dug tiny drainage channels between the plants until the warnings started fading. Same problem with the potatoes, same fix. I made a mental note. Next time, plant on raised ridges so water drains naturally. The 2 chili plants were fine, nearly ready for picking, covered in hundreds of tiny peppers, some already turning red. Cherry tomatoes needed their branches tied to support stakes since the fruit was weighing them down. Regular tomatoes were still small, but sturdy enough to handle the rain. The rabbit ear grass just sat there drinking happily in its 100-square-meter plot, completely unbothered. That plant never has problems. It just wants more water, always. After over an hour of checking, digging small trenches, tying up plants, and adjusting water flow, everything was stable. The field inspection task paid 50 survival points, one of the higher daily rewards I've gotten. But the work wasn't done. I still needed to patrol the main drainage channels up the mountain to make sure nothing was clogged. One blockage in the wrong spot, and all that digging would be wasted. Farming in a storm is exhausting work. No glory, no treasure drops, just mud, rain, and the constant worry that everything you've built could wash away. The kitten and I went out in the storm to patrol the drainage channels before even eating breakfast. The water in the trenches was rushing fast enough that the kitten gripped my shirt tighter. If it fell in, it'd be swept away. I walked along every channel, pulling out large rocks that had tumbled down from higher up. One boulder might not block the flow, but if more rolled down and jammed against it, the whole system could fail. The chat channel was chaos. People who'd built homes by the river were flooded and blaming whoever had originally shared the information about riverside living, even though the original post had clearly listed both advantages and disadvantages. Others on hillsides reported mudslides burying their houses or wild animals attacking, driven from their own destroyed shelters by the storm. Everyone was suffering and looking for someone to blame. Qin Jian messaged to check on me. I told him the drainage was holding up. He warned me that displaced wild creatures might target player-built homes as shelter. He'd already fought off 3 attacks at his place. Good point. I thanked him and kept working. While clearing debris, I finally opened my friend request inbox. I'd turned off notifications on the first day and never looked back. 721 pending friend requests. I started sorting through them. Player 999, Li Lily, had sent 7 requests over 2 weeks with increasingly aggressive attached messages. Rejected. Plenty of others just wanted to know what my support skill was. All rejected. Then I found Luo Shan's requests. 15 of them, 1 per day since the beginning. The early ones were idealistic, talking about information sharing and cooperation. The middle ones offered practical help. But the last 4 days were different. Each one just said, Day 12, probably still won't be seen. Day 13, Day 14, Day 15, probably still won't be checked. He turned it into a quiet daily ritual, expecting nothing. Something about that shift from grand ambitions to simple persistence caught my attention. I hit accept. I didn't message him, just added him and moved on through the rest of the list. Most got rejected. Anyone demanding to know my skill, anyone too pushy, anyone whose tone felt off. A few interesting ones got accepted. By the time I'd processed all 721 requests, my friends list had grown from 2 to 10. My new friends list had 10 people now, each added for different reasons. Su Lu is a craftsman offering custom work. Zhang Wei number 1 knows a lot about plants. Lu Tingfan also has a support class skill and wants to compare notes. Luo Fei has a medicine-making skill and wants to notify friends about new products. Chi Chi claims he can bend steel bars with his bare hands. I mostly added him because his number, 888, is lucky. Yun Fenglei weaves baskets and wants to sell me one. And Mu Myumo just sent a message saying 996 is 100 times happier than 997. That made me laugh, so I accepted. I messaged Mu Myumo back saying she forgot about 007. She replied instantly, 007 died on day 1. She wasn't wrong, player 7 really is gone. That made me the most dangerous number in the zone, and I didn't want to think about it. She turned out to be a non-stop talker, 22 years old, says she's been athletic and academically gifted her whole life, knows martial arts, archery, and some kind of lion's roar technique. Whether any of that is true, she's entertaining. While I patrolled the drainage channels clearing debris in the rain, she filled the silence with her entire life story. After confirming all the trenches were flowing properly, I headed home. Bought 10 pounds of lamb ribs from consignment for 300 points and started stewing them with wild herbs, bark, and roots, whatever might add flavor. The kitten watched me toss odd ingredients into the pot with a blank stare, but I could tell it was memorizing the smells for future foraging. I put the kitten inside to rest, stripped off my wet clothes, and stood in the ankle-deep rainwater filling my yard to practice water control. I focused on feeling individual raindrops, trying to grab them with my mind and move them. After a long session, I managed to capture and control about a dozen raindrops simultaneously, guiding them around my body. A small step, but real progress. Then I noticed Luo Shan had finally messaged me. Several messages, actually. The first was a polite greeting asking my age. Normal enough. But the second one stopped me cold. I had a teacher once who took on a student. My junior brother was also named Yi Qian. He sent a few more, saying not to worry if it's not the same person, that the name is common, apologizing for being too forward. I read those messages and my mood went ice cold. He said, "Teacher, my master never used that word. He said that's what they called instructors at certain institutional training programs." My old man had told me he'd never imagined having even one student in his life. The way I became his disciple was by pestering him relentlessly until he gave in. He didn't run a school. He didn't have other students. So who is Luo Shan really? He's clearly powerful. You don't become player 1 without serious ability. But is he connected to my master? Is he friend or enemy? What does he actually want from me? And what if he's one of the people who hunted my master down? As the only disciple, there are certain debts I owe. If someone out there is my master's enemy, I need to know. I sent Luo Shan a test. He didn't have students. He fired back a place name. Li Family Ditch. Not a ditch, a tree marking an abandoned village. I answered with Phoenix Well. Not a well, an old grave beneath that tree. Then he said, Frog under the well. I said, Never sees daylight. Back and forth we went, trading details that only two people connected to that old man could possibly know. The broken car my parents drove that rainy night. The drugged wine they brought as a gift. The night I ran back and saw the ambush. 18 men, 13 women. Roasting meat in the mountains when the old man would grumble, Little brat, stop eating all the meat, because there was never enough for two. Me wanting to curse him but holding back because of our master-student bond, settling for, old whatever you are, drink more soup. Then he asked why I was left alive after the family was killed. I told him the truth. I was checked repeatedly at school, probably by the same people who hunted him, and they found nothing special about me. A waste. Useless. He agreed. You really are nothing. And that's when everything clicked. The way he talked. The rhythm, the attitude, the insults wrapped in affection. The way he said, You're nothing, with the exact same tone as, You little rascal. Luo Shan is the old fraud. He's alive. He never died. I stood in the pouring rain and screamed. Years of grief. Years of crying at his grave every anniversary. Years of carrying the weight of his death. And this old con artist had been alive the whole time, playing another role, wearing another mask. Here in this world he'd been doing the exact same thing, pretending to be the noble leader, enduring abuse from ungrateful players, acting out his selfless savior routine. I was furious, absolutely furious. I'd known him under 5 different surnames. Zhao, Qian, Sun, Wang, Yi. Not one of them was Luo. So now he's Luo Shan. I demanded to know what was even real about him anymore. His response, about that. I'm actually pretty busy right now. Here, have some meat. We'll talk next time. Then he opened a trade and dumped 50 pounds of blue-quality beef onto me. I took the meat. Neither of us sent another message. We're master and student. But there's a canyon between us. My parents and grandparents sold him out, traded his freedom for wealth and comfort. He escaped captivity, came back, and destroyed my entire family. He spared me and left me his teachings, but the facts remain. My blood relatives betrayed him. He killed my blood relatives. We can't be close. Not yet, maybe not ever. But knowing he's alive, that's enough for now. The old fraud. The old liar. Still cheating death, still fooling everyone, still impossible to stay mad at. And the meat was excellent quality. 50 pounds of blue-grade beef tendon, bone and skin already removed. My mind immediately went to, can I synthesize this? I couldn't resist experimenting with the blue-quality beef. I cut 9 pieces totaling 10 pounds and synthesized them at 100% success rate. 9 chunks of meat vanished in blue light, and a single drop of liquid fell out. I caught it midair with my water control. Without that ability, it would have hit the ground and been lost. A level 2 enhancement fluid, stronger than the mushroom soup or the level 1 potion. Same rules though. Effectiveness decreases with repeated use of the same grade. I had no container, so I just swallowed it. The reaction hit like a truck. I barely had time to grab my pants before sprinting out the door without even waiting for the snake charm grass to open the gate. The kitten chased after me, but could only stand on the wall watching as I ran laps around the house in the pouring rain for hours. From 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. 5 solid hours of running and martial arts practice before the effect burned through. If I'd stayed still, the concentrated energy would have damaged and repaired my body in painful cycles until it ran out. Moving was the only safe option. The results were massive. Base combat power jumped from 15 to 25. Water ability bonus went from 26 to 36. Total fighting strength, 61. For a moment, I felt invincible. Then I splashed cold water on my face and remembered my master setting an entire village ablaze in a thunderstorm. I can barely control enough water for a bath. Nothing to be proud of yet. But the enhancement system works with repeated doses, even if each one is slightly weaker. And I had 40 pounds of blue-quality beef left. So I cut off 5 pounds for cooking and synthesized the rest into another batch of enhancement fluid, about 4 times the previous amount. Before drinking it, I tried something new. I separated a tiny needlepoint drop and mixed it with a single drop of regular water. The display changed from enhancement fluid to enhancement potion. So that's how it works. The fluid is pure concentrated energy extract, and mixing it with other substances turns it into a consumable potion or food item. I made a dose for the kitten, 1/20th of what I'd take, matching our usual food ratio. It swallowed the drop, and I downed the rest. Then we both ran out into the storm. This time there were two figures circling the house in the rain. Me sprinting around the outside of the fence, and a tiny cat running laps along the top of the snake charm grass wall, protected by its leaf friends forming a guardrail. Strengthening hurts. It's exhausting. But power is the only thing that keeps you safe in this world. When you can't solve a problem, it just means you're not strong enough yet. By nightfall, the second round of enhancement had finished. My base combat power reached 36, water ability bonus hit 49, total fighting strength of 85. When I first arrived in this world, I was at 5. Now I'm 7 times stronger in body alone. But I could feel that blue quality enhancement had hit its ceiling for me. 2 doses, and the effect was completely used up. If I want more growth, I'll need purple quality materials next time. It had been a genuinely good day despite the storm. The snake charm grass evolved and built better walls on its own. I found out my master is alive. I got 50 pounds of rare meat, synthesized it into enhancement fluid, and more than doubled my combat power. And my drainage channels held. No flooding damage to any of my fields. The kitten jumped down from the grass wall soaking wet, pressed its head against my face, and went quiet in my arms. It had gotten stronger too. We were both exhausted. I lay in the rain for half an hour just resting, shielding the kitten with my hands while letting the water wash over me. With my current body, I could soak in a storm for days without harm. After washing up and eating, I got a message from Lu Tingfan, player 600, the other support skill holder. He'd nearly been buried alive by a mudslide and only survived because his mutant plants physically shielded him. We started trading notes about our plant-related skills. His ability accelerates plant growth and occasionally triggers mutations. Mine is communication. I can sense what my plants need, and they can understand basic intentions from me. He was jealous of my skill. Apparently, he keeps using his growth ability on his plants until they get annoyed, and they express irritation by picking him up with their vines and shaking him around. I told him about the kitten playing with the snake charm grass, getting scooped up and swung around happily, and suggested maybe his plants weren't angry at all, just playing. That seemed to blow his mind. He got excited about trying a different approach with them. We chatted on and off until midnight, when the weather updated, storm transitioning to light rain, temperatures dropping to around 20 degrees. Tomorrow's tasks included field repair and gathering, which meant the rain should ease up by mid-morning. I petted the sleeping kitten beside my pillow. After the storm, there'd be plenty of cleanup and hopefully some good finds. But for now, sleep. Morning came with the storm still raging, but there was a welcome surprise in the chicken coop, the first egg. My hen had finally reached adulthood. Without a rooster, the eggs can't hatch, but they're perfectly good for eating. 1 egg per day from now on. I made beef and egg drop soup for breakfast, with shredded cilantro from my field on top. While cooking, I realized I don't own any cooking oil. No plant oil, no animal fat, nothing. Checked the market, and the cheapest bottle of peanut oil was 500 survival points for a tiny 2-ounce portion. Animal fat was 3 or 4 times more. I'll have to manage without for now. The kitten ate its meat slices from the plate without me having to mash anything. It's grown enough to chew properly. After breakfast, I headed out in the rain to inspect everything. The breeding plot was progressing nicely. The fragrant bamboo had somehow gained an extra day of growth from brief accelerations I'd missed during the busy days. The breeding cilantro was big and about to enter its flowering stage tomorrow. Once it blooms and produces seeds, I'll have a self-sustaining supply. The leek was doing the same, preparing to flower. The sweet potato was the star. It had sprouted over a dozen shoots, and tomorrow I could start pulling the taller ones to transplant into new ground. The first batch of 20 cabbages would be ready in just a few hours. They looked great, 5 to 8 pounds each by my estimate. The chili plants had some red peppers already, with more ripening over the coming days. Tomatoes were fruiting up, potatoes entering maturity, but still growing. The rain was finally easing. I searched around for gathering materials, but only found a few ordinary snake berries, nothing green quality. so the gathering task stayed incomplete. The area around my hill is just too clean. Farming players get placed where the land is good for crops, not where wild plants grow abundantly. That's gatherer territory. Zhang Wei sent his usual check-in message. Normal enough, but it made me think about something else. He and Qin Jian and Zhang Wei #1 all have connections to Luo Shan. Now that I know Luo Shan is actually my old fraud of a master, I can't help wondering, did he target these people deliberately? Do they have some history I don't know about? I caught myself spiraling and shook it off. The old man told me to stay low and mind my own business. So that's what I'll do. I'm just a weak young farmer trying to live peacefully with his cat. Whatever schemes that old con artist is running, they're his problem. Zhang Wei told me his entire mountain collapsed at 4 in the morning. A full landslide that scattered the wildlife and swept away his bear cub. He'd have to find a new place to build from scratch. Hunters and gatherers can pack up and relocate easily since everything fits in a backpack. Farmers like me can't move our fields. That's the trade-off. I'm more tied down, but my location seems inherently more stable. Whether that's because of the drainage work or because the system places farming players on solid ground, I'm not sure. While checking the mountaintop drainage channels, the kitten gave a soft alert. Not panicked, just a heads up. Ahead of us was a meter-wide mound of mud that kept trembling and bulging. Something was underneath. I wanted to wait and observe, but the kitten was already tensing up to go investigate, so I acted first. I gathered a column of rainwater and slammed it down on the mound. It burst open, spraying dark grayish water in every direction, probably toxic or corrosive, but it only reached about 10 meters, and we were 30 meters back. Then clear, cool water started flowing out from the broken ground underneath. Mountain spring water. I pulled some over to check. The system labeled it as meeting basic drinking standards. After 16 days of buying every drop of drinking water, I was looking at a free, natural source right on my hilltop. I sprinted home, grabbed every empty bottle I had, ran back up, and filled over 100 bottles. There's a catch though, bottled spring water only lasts 3 days before it expires. Nothing players produce stays fresh forever in this world. Still, 3 days of free water beats paying for every sip. Back home, I opened a bottle for the snake charm grass. It split open a leaf mouth, grew a tiny straw-shaped leaf inside, and sucked the whole bottle dry. After tasting it, the grass communicated that it was slightly better than well water, but not worth me making special trips. I told it not to worry. Once the weather clears, I'm planning to cut some bamboo poles, hollow them out, and build a pipeline from the spring straight down to the house. Running water, delivered by gravity. The grass seemed to understand and was willing to wait. The rain finally eased enough to harvest. I pulled up all 20 cabbages. The first one weighed over 5 pounds after stripping the outer leaves. Each cabbage gave exactly 1 experience point. 20 cabbages, 20 points. Farming experience really is painfully slow to earn. The rabbit ear grass had given 100 experience for 168 leaves last time, confirming it counts per harvest, not per leaf. The enhanced mushroom also gave 100. Whether all mutant plants give the same amount, I still can't tell without more variety to test. I picked the ripe red chilies too. Both plants together only gave 2 experience points, 1 per plant, counted only after clearing all the ripe peppers. They'll need 2 more days before the next batch ripens. I messaged Luo Shan, my old fraud of a master, offering him some cabbage. Fair trade for the beef he'd sent. He accepted happily and asked if I'd eaten the meat yet. I told him the blue quality enhancement had already hit its ceiling for me and asked for some green quality meat instead, about 30 or 40 pounds, to fill in the lower tier I'd skipped. He grumbled about how I'd managed to eat 50 pounds of beef without exploding, called me a brat, then went out and killed a mutant sheep in the rain. Half an hour later we traded. His 39 pounds of mutton for my 10 cabbages. Completely lopsided in my favor, but he didn't seem to care. He said he was going to make braised pork belly with cabbage and wandered off. I cut the mutton into 9 pieces, always 9. It's become a ritual, and synthesized a drop of green quality enhancement fluid. After maxing out blue grade enhancement, the green stuff absorbed easily during a quick round of practice in the yard. It added 4 points to base combat power and 2 to water ability. Small gains, but it filled in the foundation I'd jumped over. Meanwhile, I listed 150 rabbit ear grass leaves on auction. I'd been holding them because nobody was shopping during the storm, but now that the weather was clearing, livestock owners would need feed again. Luo Fei, the medicine maker on my friend's list, sent me a batch advertisement for her potions, strengthening potions at 1,000 points each, stamina recovery at 800, vitality recovery at 500. She broadcasts these to all her friends every time she makes a new batch. I don't need any of them, but it's useful to know the market prices. Then Yun Fenglei messaged trying to sell me his hand-woven baskets. He really did come just to peddle his wares. Can't fault the hustle, though. Everyone's trying to make a living after the storm. A player named Yun Fenglei messaged me about his baskets. I figured a basket is a basket, maybe add a strap or a lid. But when I told him I wanted something for carrying things outdoors with decent internal space, he sent me pages of specifications. Shapes, sizes, compartment layouts, special features, materials. This wasn't basket weaving. This was engineering. I picked the simplest options I could understand. Wearable on the back, no bigger than 1 meter outside. Interior split into 2 sections, one open and one with a half-meter tall narrow compartment. He offered 2 sizes, 50 cubic meters of storage for 5,000 points or 100 cubic meters for 7,000. When a basic cloth backpack with only 16 cubic meters sells for 3,000, this was a bargain. I went with the bigger one. He needed no deposit and finished it in half an hour. Half an hour for a 100 cubic meter container. The man casually mentioned his previous job had been weaving an entire 3-bedroom house, with furniture included. He wasn't bragging. He just wanted me to know I could order bigger next time. The finished product was nothing like a basket. It looked like a modern hiking backpack with smooth curved edges that fit snugly against my back. Every vine strand was perfectly uniform at 0.6 centimeters thick. The front had a woven door with a flower-shaped twist lock. Blue quality, 100 cubic meters, durability at a full 1,000. This thing was clearly not made by hand. This guy has some kind of special manipulation ability and uses basket weaving as practice for his control skills while earning money on the side. The kitten tried putting its paw on the new shoulder strap. I moved it away and it understood, don't scratch this one. My old cloth backpack was falling apart at under half durability anyway. This upgrade was long overdue. With 100 cubic meters of empty space to fill, I headed out into the drizzle to forage. The rain had finally slowed enough by mid-afternoon that mushrooms were popping up across the hillside. I grabbed every single one. Eventually, I found an unidentified plant too, completing the daily gathering task. But I wasn't stopping there. This afternoon's goal was to strip this entire mountainside of anything worth picking up. By evening, my new backpack was filling up nicely. 17 unidentified plants, over 37 pounds of mushrooms, wild greens, the vine materials, and all my other supplies transferred from the old bag. The kitten even contributed a freshly caught earthworm for the chicken before running off to play with the snake charm grass. Then Zhang Wei sent exciting news. He dug his bear cub out from under the collapsed mountain. Over 12 hours buried alive, but it was still breathing. A genuine miracle. The next message was a plea. The cub was dying. Its life force was nearly gone. Medicine wasn't working, and he was desperate. He offered me 3,000 survival points to try healing it. He said if I couldn't save it, no hard feelings. He just couldn't watch it die after it had held on long enough for him to find it. 3,000 points is 3,000 points. I accepted the trade. 1 barely alive black bear cub and 3,000 survival points. I wrapped the cub's body in a water sphere and started working on its insides. The injuries were severe: crushed chest cavity, damaged organs, fluid buildup that couldn't drain, breathing problems from prolonged compression. I'd never tried anything this complex with my water ability before. The kitten sniffed the bear, wrinkled its nose in disgust, and had to be tucked into my arms to keep it from bothering me. I told it this was a paying customer's pet. Fix it up, send it back, collect the fee. It took hours. I sat on my bed with the kitten in one arm and the bear floating in a water cocoon beside me, slowly cleaning damaged tissue, easing fluid out of places it shouldn't be, coaxing broken organs back toward function. Dinner was late. I stopped just long enough to reheat food, eat, then went right back to it. I glanced at the chat channel once and saw someone had tallied the storm's casualties. Out of 36,012 players who'd entered the zone, 34,993 remained. Over 1,000 dead in 16 days, with this disaster taking a significant chunk. Near midnight, the bear cub finally opened its eyes and whimpered. 3 of its 4 limbs were crushed. Only one front leg, and its head had been protected, probably wedged into some gap when the rocks fell. It couldn't move, but it was conscious and probably hungry. I had no idea what to feed a baby bear, so I messaged Zhang Wei to ask. The healing wasn't finished, but the critical phase was past. This bear wasn't going to die tonight. And for me, this whole ordeal was turning out to be incredible practice. Controlling water inside a living body, reading damage through fluid movement, making precise repairs at a level I'd never attempted. Exhausting work, but the kind that makes you stronger.